Chapter 1528. The Trash of the Scarlet Fire Town's Long Family. 10 years of persistence, never giving up. Just like that, Longao rose step by step in the Scarlet Fire Town. Not only did he rebuild the dragon sect, he even dominated the 9 continents. According to normal circumstances. Since he had already dominated the 9 continents, then Longao could comfortably oversee the 9 continents. But in the end, Longao's footsteps did not stop as he left the 9 continents and entered the Sky Marshal continent. Longao was like a tornado, sweeping through the entire Sky Marshal continent. Even the 3 superforces were unable to kill Longao. What kind of concept was this? First place on the Earth ranking, entering the Heaven ranking, and even obtaining the favor of the divine mathematician. All of this made Longao filled with legends. At this moment, Shapotian regretted it so much that his intestines turned green. If he had killed Longao back then, there wouldn't be today's trouble. Longao clearly knew that he was going to make a move, so why did he stay here? Could it be that he had something to rely on? The calmer Longao appeared, the more uncertain Shapotian felt. Although he had full confidence in the 10,000 beast chi barrier and other defenses that he had set up, the world was unpredictable. Longao, do you have the confidence to leave? Why don't you give it a try? Without waiting for Shapotian to speak, Longao continued, Shapotian, do you think that the divine mathematician won't be able to calculate today's matter? Shapotian did not say anything, because that was indeed what he thought. Longao smiled and said, you survived by luck. I can tell you clearly that the divine mathematician's divine divination Tao is unparalleled in the world. At this point, Longao did not continue, but the meaning of his words was very clear. This time, Shapotian murmured to himself. It was better to be safe than sorry. If the divine mathematician was right about this matter, not only him, but the entire WN Show sect would be implicated. You can't keep me. Longao did not enter the dragon seal space, because he had already tried. It seemed that Shapotian had done enough to interfere with the surrounding spatial fluctuations. If that was the case, it would be difficult for him to leave. Father. How a wise man submits to circumstances. As a disciple of the Zhu clan, come here. Until now, Zhu Hao still couldn't believe that his father had really betrayed big brother Longao. It was as if someone had ruthlessly slapped him in the face, and it was exceptionally loud. Not only that, Zhu Hao also felt that he had let down big brother Longao. If it wasn't for big brother Longao, he would probably still be the Zhu clan's trash. How could he possibly become a heavenly god? I swear I won't move even if I die. Upon hearing this, Zhu Tian's face instantly darkened. Patriarch Zhu, can you afford to lose your son? His heart thumped. Zhu Tian could tell that Shapotian wasn't happy. It would be a lie if he said that he didn't want to part with his son. Zhu Tian loved his son the most, especially as Zhu Hao's strength increased rapidly. If there were no accidents, Zhu Tian believed that Hao would definitely reach the supreme level of divinity in the future. Zhu Hao was the future hope of the Zhu family. However, between his son and the WAN Show sect, Zhu Tian would not hesitate to choose the WAN Show sect over his son. In Zhu Tian's opinion, even if he had to sacrifice his son, he could not afford to offend the WAN Show sect. At this point, there was no turning back. Don't worry, Lord. I know what to do. Waving his hand, 6 people shot out from behind Zhu Tian. They were the 6 supreme Tao warriors of the Zhu family. They were also 6 elders, 2 divine focus warriors, and 4 void god warriors. Such a lineup could be said to be very powerful. As everyone knew, even if Zhu Hao had Longao's help, his cultivation had only broken through to the supreme Tao realm. It was unknown whether he could avoid the lightning tribulation. After all, if Zhu Hao had undergone the lightning tribulation, it was impossible for no one in Blackwater City to know. Because of this, everyone could almost say that the current Zhu Hao was at most in the lightning tribulation supreme Tao realm. He hadn't even reached the void god realm. Taking a step back. Even if Zhu Hao's cultivation had really reached the void god realm, the Zhu family would send out 6 supreme Tao warriors at once. Unless Zhu Hao's strength could reach the human god realm, otherwise, Zhu Hao wouldn't be able to resist the combined might of the six. Of course, the six of them knew what to do. No matter what, Zhu Hao was still the son of the patriarch. As long as they could take him down, they would think about it later. Longao didn't make a move. Zhu Hao, who was behind him, had already rushed out. Before the six of them arrived, they had already released their powerful divine territories. Under the layers of superposition, one could imagine the power. However, Zhu Hao wasn't afraid at all. He also released his powerful divine territory. However, the power of the two divine territories couldn't be compared. The Void God Divine Territory and the Focus God Divine Territory were nothing compared to the divine territory released by Zhu Hao. Because of this, the six of them were shocked when they felt the divine territory released by Zhu Hao. There was only one reason why Zhu Hao could release the divine territory. It meant that Zhu Hao's cultivation wasn't in the Lightning Tribulation Supreme Tao realm or the Void God realm. He was in the genuine divine realm. Under the suppression of the divine realm, Zhu Hao only used one move to defeat the six of them. Like a kite with a broken string, the six of them flew out. If Zhu Hao didn't show mercy, the six of them would have died. In the end, Zhu Hao still couldn't forget that he was a member of the Zhu clan. Otherwise, the six of them wouldn't have just flown out. They would have died. Divine Realm. Zhu Tian was shocked to the extreme when he sensed the divine realm released by his son. If that was the case, it would be a piece of cake for his son to break through to the supreme divine realm. What method did Longao use to raise his son from a trash to the heavenly god realm? If he didn't see it with his own eyes, he wouldn't believe it even if he was beaten to death. It was unbelievable. Ha ha ha, a puny divine realm cultivator dares to be impudent here. Shapotian just sat there without moving. Suddenly, a terrifying divine territory was released from his body, directly covering Zhu Hao. With Shapotian's strength, if he wanted to, he could kill Zhu Hao at any time. Seeing his son being covered by the divine territory, Zhu Tian was helpless. In this situation, he didn't dare to move. If he angered Shapotian, not only his son, but even he himself wouldn't be able to escape death. Shapotian, if you dare to attack, as long as I can leave this place alive, I can guarantee that from now on, I won't do anything but assassinate your WN Show sect's disciples. Anyway, you can't attack me in a year. I don't believe that I can't take care of your WN Show sect in a year. A threat. A blatant threat. Not to mention ordinary people, even the other 9 superforces wouldn't dare to threaten the WAN Show sect. After all, the WAN Show sect was powerful. Chapter 1529. Anger. Being threatened by Longao, Shapotian's face was extremely gloomy. He would be lying if he said he wasn't afraid. Not to mention in front of so many people, where would he put his face? Longao's threat was 100% effective against Shapotian. Longao had calculated that Shapotian wouldn't dare to act rashly. After all, once he left, he would be able to assassinate the WAN Show sect's disciples. Who in the WAN Show sect would be able to withstand his assassination? Gamble. Whether it was Shapotian or Longao, this battle was actually a gamble. They wanted to see who was more daring. The air froze, and a battle was about to break out. The domain of heaven and earth around Zhu Hao disappeared, and Longao let out a sigh of relief. If Shapotian didn't listen to his threat and killed Zhu Hao, he wouldn't have been able to do anything. After all, Shapotian's strength was obvious. Shapotian smiled. Congratulations, your threat was successful. Shapotian, why don't we get straight to the point? All right. Even though Master God Diviner sided with you during the battle at the Sword Sect and set up the so-called one-year agreement, and even though my Myriad Beast sect can't attack you for a year, Longao, if you try to assassinate a disciple of my Myriad Beast sect, even if Master God Diviner finds out about it, do you think you'll be able to escape? He wasn't worried at all. In the one-year agreement, the Clairvoyant Master clearly stated that only Longao had to deal with the 3 superforces, and the 3 superforces couldn't do anything to Longao. This was clearly favoritism. Longao knew this, and so did Shapotian. Longao, I won't touch your Dragon Valley, and you won't touch my WN Show sect. Let's settle the grudge between us today without involving our families. What do you think? In the end, Shapotian chose to compromise. As for Longao, he had never thought of dealing with the three superforces. Longao knew very well that even with the clairvoyant master's protection and deterrence, he couldn't push the three superforces too hard. Otherwise, if they were cornered, who knew what they would do? He had no choice but to agree. I agree. Just as Longao finished speaking, a terrifying aura of the mythological beast rose up, and instantly shrouded the entire courtyard. Since Zhu Tian had already betrayed him, Longao naturally would not continue to help the Zhu family. Not killing Zhu Tian was already giving Zhu Hao face. As for the 10 god beast corpse slaves that were given to the Zhu family, they were all summoned back by Longao. Longao's entire body dashed out. One-on-one, he fought against Shapotian. As for the rest of the people, other than Zhu Tian, Longao did not plan to leave anyone behind. Not a single one of them was left alive. Even if it were Wang Jian and Qin Chuan, they would still be able to kill 10 level 4 supreme divine beast corpse slaves. He swept through the courtyard. "Sir, save us." Everyone was scared to the extreme and immediately asked Shapotian for help. However, would Shapotian help them? The 10 god beast corpse slaves attacked continuously. From the beginning to the end, Shapotian didn't want to help them at all. Previously, when Wang Jian and Qin Chuan asked for help, they had already angered Shapotian. Even if Longao didn't kill them, Shapotian wouldn't let them go. No matter what, they were all dead. They could not withstand the attacks of the god beast corpse slaves. In less than a few minutes, everyone except the 7 Zhu family members were killed. This battle had alarmed the entire Zhu family. No one dared to approach because the aura of a battle of this level alone was enough to destroy everything. "Patriarch, why don't we leave here first?" Shaking his head, Zhu Tian's expression changed again and again. He really did not expect that Longao would dare to attack and kill everyone in this situation. On one side was the Wan Shou sect, on the other was Longao. No matter who they offended, the Zhu family was doomed. Before Shapotian made a move, Zhu Tian had already guessed that Shapotian wanted to kill with a borrowed knife. After all, Shapotian didn't really want to help Heishui City. He just wanted to use the 3 big families to deal with Longao. Even if Longao did not kill the 7 of them for Zhu Hao, Zhu Tian was sure that Shapotian would not let him and the Zhu family go. One wrong step would lead to many wrong steps. It was too late to regret now. Zhu Tian thought of all kinds of ways to save the situation. However, in front of the Wan Shou sect, there was only one way, and that was death. Although Longao's cultivation had reached the hierarch realm, there was still a big gap between his cultivation level and Shapotian's. It was not realistic for him to fight Shapotian head-on. Longao and his reincarnation avatar attacked Shapotian from the left and right respectively. He opened his reincarnation heavenly eye. 2 rays of black light suddenly shot out from Longao's eyes. When Shapotian was not paying attention, it directly attacked Shapotian's mind and soul. A scream was heard. Fortunately, Shapotian's cultivation had reached the realm of oneness of heaven and man, otherwise, just this alone was enough to shatter his soul. Among the 5 nirvana realms, the first 3 realms were still the soul. Only when one broke through to the 4th realm, the so-called nirvana realm, would the soul begin to transform into a yuan spirit. The primordial spirit was above the spirit. If Shapotian's cultivation base could break through the nirvana stage, he wouldn't mind being attacked by Longao's reincarnation sky eye. After all, the primordial spirit was too powerful. Shapotian was a little dumbfounded. He didn't expect Longao to be able to injure him. It was simply unbelievable. It was precisely because of this that Shapotian, who was in the middle of the battle, began to be careful everywhere because Longao was too unpredictable. It was difficult to make up for the difference in cultivation level with other things. Longao knew this better than anyone else. If he could break through to the enlightenment of heaven and earth realm, he would have a higher chance of winning against Shapotian. Therefore, he would lose without a doubt. "Let's go." Longao did not continue to stay. However, Shapotian used some kind of secret technique to freeze the surrounding space and compress the myriad beast chi shield, making it difficult for Longao to move. Peng! Peng! Peng. Brother Longao, thank you for your help. Zhu Hao laughed. His entire body began to explode. With a bang, blood mist filled the sky. He forcibly compressed the space and opened a hole. Self-explosion. In the end, Zhu Hao chose to self-explode. Other than knowing that he would definitely die, he also wanted to help Longao leave this place. Chapter 1530. Shapotian, I'll make you regret this. Zhu Hao chose to self-destruct, and the blood mist forcibly broke through the space. Longao, who had already been compressed by space, took advantage of this opportunity to use spatial teleportation. His body instantly disappeared from his original spot. Shapotian's face was extremely gloomy as he looked at the space that had returned to normal. Longao managed to escape. Shapotian never thought that Zhu Hao's self-destruction would be so powerful that it could shatter the space. If he did not see it with his own eyes, he would not have believed it. It would be unrealistic to say that he was not worried. Longao's strength and variables were obvious. There was only one thing that Shapotian was most worried about, and that was Longao's assassination. If it was an open battle, the Wan Shou sect would not take Longao seriously at all. After all, Longao was only in the ultimate god realm. What they were afraid of was Longao's assassination. Apart from Nirvana realm warriors, how many people in the sect could withstand Longao's assassination? Regarding Longao's talent, Shapotian was also truly endlessly fearful. That was the real reason why Shapotian chose to take the risk. It had only been a few months since the battle in the sword sect, but Longao's cultivation had improved greatly. At this rate, Longao's cultivation would most likely break through to the Nirvana realm in a year. The Wan Shou sect would not take ordinary Nirvana realm warriors seriously. Except for Longao. Longao was only in the Supreme Dao realm, and he was already so unpredictable. If he broke through to the Nirvana realm, even the sect would not be able to do anything to Longao. Therefore, no matter what happened, Longao must die, even if he had the oracle's favor. 2 days later, in the main hall of the Wan Shou sect, the Wan Shou sect ancestor, Shichong, Shifeng, and Shapotian sat around. The three of them already knew what happened between Shapotian and Longao, and their faces were very gloomy. Potian, you were too reckless this time. Ancestor, Longao's talent is too shocking. I haven't seen him for a few months and he has already reached the ultimate god realm. If we don't kill him as soon as possible, I'm afraid we'll be at a disadvantage in the 1-year agreement. The myriad beast's ancestor's expression grew even more solemn. How could the myriad beast's ancestor not know what Potian meant? If Longao was not killed, he would become a huge threat to the Wan Shou sect. Patriarch, if Master God Diviner finds out about this, we'll be in big trouble. Even though Shapotian was a little reckless, Shichong and the other two didn't blame him at all. Shapotian was the #1 genius of the martial heaven continent. Although he wasn't ranked on the earth ranking or heaven ranking, his talent and power were all there. Even if Shapotian did something wrong, no one would blame him. He thought for a moment. Before the myriad beast's old ancestor could say anything, the faces of the 4 changed. Master Clairvoyant. The 4 of them stood up at the same time and bowed respectfully. Master God Diviner was the #1 genius of the martial heaven continent. His power was above the heavenly Daos. Let alone the 4 of them, even the heavenly Daos would have to be courteous to him. This was Master God Diviner. Not only was he powerful, but his Dao of divination was also unparalleled. Master God Diviner had suddenly come to the sect. Could it be that he already knew about what had happened in Blackwater City? If that was the case, they would be in big trouble. In the Battle of the Sword Sect, Master God Diviner had said that the 3 superpowers and Longao had agreed to meet in a year. Within that year, the 3 superpowers couldn't deal with Longao. It was easy to imagine what would happen to those who disobeyed. With Master God Diviner's power, destroying the Myriad Beast sect was something he could do in a matter of minutes. Shapotian, do you admit to what happened in Blackwater City? As expected. Although the 4 of them had guessed it, hearing Master God Diviner say it himself made their hearts skip a beat. Now that things had reached this point, Shapotian had no intention of hiding it. After all, since Master God Diviner had personally come, there was no doubt that he had divined this matter. Even if he wanted to hide it, it would be impossible. Master God Diviner, this matter has nothing to do with the Myriad Beasts sect. It was my own wish. Longao and I are like fire and water. He was the one who trespassed on my territory, so I had to do something. If you want to blame someone, just blame me. Before Master God Diviner could say anything, Shapotian continued, Master God Diviner, I trust that you won't implicate the Myriad Beasts sect in this matter, right? Master God Diviner smiled. His face was full of praise. You're not bad. Starting now, within a year, no matter who the Myriad Beast sect is, as long as they try to deal with Longao, I will exterminate the entire Myriad Beast sect. No one will be left alive. Hearing Master God Diviner's words, the four of them breathed a sigh of relief. They were very clear that since Master God Diviner had said so, he wouldn't pursue the matter of Blackwater City. Master God Diviner, starting now, our Myriad Beasts sect won't make a move against Longao. However, Master God Diviner, there is something I have to say. Even if our Myriad Beasts sect doesn't make a move against Longao, do we have to endure it? I have already said that as long as Longao doesn't step into the Myriad Beast sect, you won't make a move. During the Battle of the Sword Sect, the three of you joined forces to deal with Longao alone. You have already lost. The Battle of the Sword Sect had caused the three superforces to lose face. Although no one dared to mention it due to the three superforces' strength and face, but as Master God Diviner had said, the three superforces had already lost the Battle of the Sword Sect. Not giving the four a chance to speak, Master God Diviner said, This matter has already come to this, I don't want to see it happen again. As soon as he finished speaking, Master God Diviner's figure disappeared. The four looked at each other and saw a trace of helplessness in each other's eyes. Ancestor, Longao was lucky to escape from the Battle of Blackwater City. If nothing unexpected happens, Longao will definitely make a move against our Myriad Beast sect. With Master God Diviner's restriction, as long as Longao doesn't enter our Myriad Beast sect, we can't make a move. In this case, we will be in a very passive position. How could the Myriad Beast's ancestor not understand Shachong's worries? He thought for a moment. In the end, the Myriad Beast's ancestor sighed helplessly and said, We can't afford to provoke Master God Diviner. His Tao of divination is unparalleled in the world. I believe you have already seen what happened in Blackwater City. Ancestor, then what should we do now? Pass down my order. From now on, no one above the divine realm is allowed to leave the sect without permission for a year. Those who violate this order will be killed without mercy. Hearing this, the three of them looked helpless. Since things had already reached this point, even if they were filled with endless helplessness and unwillingness, they had no choice. Chapter 1531. The matter of Blackwater City had been completely sealed off. As for who was the one who sealed it off, no one knew. At the top of the mountain, Longao stood quietly at the top of the mountain, letting the breeze blow past him. Looking at the endless void in the distance, Longao didn't show the slightest anger on his face. It was very likely that a storm was coming under his calm. Juhao's self-destruction seemed to have greatly affected Longao. Strength. At this moment, Longao still felt that his strength was far from enough. He couldn't deal with Shapotian alone. If Juhao hadn't self-destructed, he might not have been able to leave the courtyard. Wan Shou sect, I will make you pay. The night passed silently. The next day, Longao was already in front of the Wan Shou sect. Before Longao entered the Wan Shou sect, he heard a voice in his ear. He was a little surprised. However, Longao still turned around and flew in another direction. After a while, he disappeared without a trace. In the void of the 9 heavens, thousands of miles of clouds. At the top of the clouds, there were 2 cloud stools and a cloud table. On the cloud table, there were 2 white jade cups. On the cloud stools, the marvelous mathematician sat leisurely. He gently picked up the wine cup on the table and took a sip. Longao, please sit down. Longao was very shocked. Because even if his cultivation had broken through the Nirvana realm, it would be impossible for him to do what he just did. Could this be the divine ability of a peak expert? Longao didn't have the slightest courtesy and directly sat down. The more he did so, the more shocked he was because all of this was a little bit surreal. Senior marvelous mathematician, I don't know why you called me here this time. Longao, I already know about the matter of Blackwater City. Hearing this, Longao wasn't surprised at all because the marvelous mathematician's Tao of divination was right there. If he didn't even know about the matter of Blackwater City, then he was a little too weak. What did the marvelous mathematician mean? Longao already knew that if the 10,000 Beasts sect was safe and sound, then there was no doubt that Master God Diviner hadn't done anything. Longao, I've already talked to the 10,000 Beasts sect. As long as you don't enter the 10,000 Beasts sect within a year, they won't do anything to you. So that was the case. Thank you, Senior Clairvoyant. It didn't matter what Master God Diviner's goal was, Longao was well aware that if it weren't for him, he would never have been able to escape. Longao, you've entered the draconic arcane realm before? Exactly. Longao didn't hide anything from him. What did the oracle mean by suddenly asking about this? Longao, if that's the case, I believe you've already met the Black Demon. Do you know who the Black Demon is? He shook his head. Senior Clairvoyant, please enlighten me. Longao was also very curious about Heimo's identity. Especially when he entered the dark space, he didn't know why the Black Demon let him go. Until now, he still didn't know why. Could it be that the Black Demon was being kind? 10,000 years ago, the Black Demon was invincible in the continent. Even Master God Diviner was no match for the Black Demon. Longao already knew about this. According to Xiling, the Black Demon was too powerful. Other than Master God Diviner himself, no one was a match for him. Even Tian Dao would have been killed if Master God Diviner hadn't suddenly appeared in the battle against the Black Demon. One could only imagine how powerful the Heimo was. Back then, I didn't hesitate to harm myself to seal the Black Demon in the draconic arcane realm. I also relied on the royal dragon chi of the entire Dragon Valley to suppress the Black Demon. However, 3 years later, I'll release the Black Demon. Why? He was shocked. Longao couldn't understand why Master God Diviner would suddenly break the seal and release the Black Demon. Master God Diviner had already said that he didn't hesitate to harm himself to seal the Black Demon. Since that was the case, could it be that Master God Diviner had lost his mind and was causing trouble for him for no reason? As if he could see what Longao was thinking, Master God Diviner helplessly said, "The weak space." Longao instantly guessed what Master God Diviner was saying. The Black Demon's power was obvious. 3 years later, the weak space would be destroyed, destroying the Martial Heaven continent. If he could obtain the Black Demon's help, it wouldn't be a bad thing. It seems you've guessed it. Longao nodded. After all, if he still couldn't guess what Master God Diviner was saying, he would be a bit retarded. Longao, 3 years later, if the Black Demon helps me repair the weak space and I'm unable to seal the Black Demon, I hope you can inherit my legacy and seal it. So it was for this. Perhaps no one would be able to resist such a temptation. After all, Master God Diviner was the #1 expert of the Martial Heaven continent. Unless his head had been kicked by a donkey, he wouldn't be able to resist. Longao didn't want to inherit Master God Diviner's legacy. If that was the case, he would have been able to inherit it countless times. Each time, he wouldn't want to because he wanted to walk his own path. However, in this situation, Longao didn't agree, nor did he object. Instead, he asked, "Senior God Diviner, could it be that the weak space really can't be repaired in 3 years? There's a 50% chance. If we have the Black Demon's help, that chance will increase to 90%. So we have to take this risk." If that was the case, then Longao was very clear that this risk was worth taking, and he had to take it. After all, nothing could happen to the Tianwu continent. Everyone was responsible for the safety of the continent. Even if it was Longao, as long as he had the strength, he would not hesitate to repair the weak space. "How do you feel?" Longao's expression began to change. It took 10 minutes for him to recover. Shocked, Longao asked in surprise, "What's going on?" Longao could clearly sense that in just a few minutes, his cultivation base had gone from the God Realm to the peak of the God Realm. This kind of cultivation speed shocked even him. It was a bit too fast. Just what was going on? Longao was almost certain that the reason he had been able to break through to the peak of the God Realm in such a short time was because of Master God Diviner's help. Otherwise, there was no way he could have broken through at this time. Longao just couldn't figure out how Master God Diviner had helped him. Furthermore, he hadn't felt anything at all. As if he could see the doubt in Longao's heart, the divine mathematician said with a smile, "The wine you drank just now was refined by me from a ignore supreme treasure. You drank a total of 3 cups. Being able to advance by 1 level is not bad." So that's how it was. Longao laughed inside. If 3 cups could allow him to reach the peak of the God Realm, then what if he drank 30 cups, or even 300 cups? Wouldn't his cultivation base directly reach the Nirvana realm? Chapter 1532. Drinking too much won't do you any good. Before Longao could speak, the clairvoyant continued, "This is all I can help you with." Longao wanted to say something, but since the clairvoyant had already said so, he didn't have the nerve to say anything. Even so, Longao was already satisfied. In just a few minutes, he had successfully broken through to the peak ultimate God realm. It was like a pie falling from the sky. Although Longao was very confident in his cultivation talent, he roughly calculated that it would take him at least 3 months to break through to the peak ultimate God realm. The peak ultimate God realm was only 1 step away from the Emperor God realm. Even the Nirvana realm was only 1 step away. Longao, Senior, please tell me what you need. From now on, no matter what happens to you, I will not appear. Remember, don't act rashly. Understood? It didn't matter whether the clairvoyant master appeared or not. Longao was very clear that the grievances between him and the 3 superforces had to be resolved eventually. The clairvoyant master did not speak, and so did Longao. Half an hour later, Longao finally calmed down. Even after leaving the 9th heaven, he did not immediately enter the Wn Shou sect to seek revenge. According to the clairvoyant master, as long as he did not enter the Wn Shou sect, the Wn Shou sect would not attack him. If that was the case, there was no need for him to take the risk. Assassination. Even if it was an open assassination, it would be fine as long as he did not enter the Wn Shou sect. Longao was full of confidence. As long as he did not meet a Nirvana realm cultivator, he could even kill an Emperor God realm cultivator. Just like that. Longao stood guard outside the Wn Shou sect, waiting for the people of the Wn Shou sect to appear. If 1 came out, he would kill 1, if 2 came out, he would kill 2. For 3 whole days, not a single Supreme Tao cultivator from the Wn Shou sect appeared. Longao was not a fool. He had already guessed that the Wn Shou sect must have taken precautions. If there was no accident, the Wn Shou sect's Supreme Tao cultivators would not appear. If that was the case, what was the point of him continuing to stay here? Wasting time. 9 States continent. Dragon Valley. Ever since the battle at the Sword Sect and the Oracle's 1-year-long agreement, the 3 superpowers had ceased all activity. None of them dared to make a move against the Dragon Valley. After all, the Oracle's threat was still there. However, the disciples of the Dragon Valley had been killed for no reason. No one knew who the culprit was. Longao immediately gave the order to summon all the Dragon Sect disciples outside and shut them in. Purple Thunder Sect, Black Heaven Sect. How could the 3 transcendent powers be willing to let Longao off? Although they couldn't casually make a move against Longao due to the threat of the Divine Diviner, the Violet Thunder Sect and Heavenly Mystic Sect weren't within this restriction. Now that the Purple Thunder Ancestor had appeared, the Purple Thunder Sect could no longer continue to deal with the Dragon Valley. However, Yi Wuren had joined forces with the Black Heaven Sect to secretly kill the disciples of the Dragon Valley. In just a few days, he had killed hundreds of disciples of the Dragon Valley. If this continued, even if the Dragon Valley had tens of thousands of disciples, they would not be able to assassinate all of them. Within the Dragon Valley, Longao sat quietly in the pavilion, his face unusually cold. This was because Longao had never imagined that other than the three transcendent powers, who else would want to deal with the Dragon Valley? With Longao's current reputation, unless there was water in the brain. Who could it be? Father, I still can't contact Ao. Long Yi's face was also solemn. In just a few days, over 100 disciples of the Dragon Valley had been killed. Moreover, there were core disciples of the Long family among them. The most speechless thing was that even now, they still didn't know who the culprit was. Whether it was Longao or Long Yi, the two of them were almost certain that the culprit couldn't be from the three transcendent powers. No matter what, the divine diviner's deterrence was still there. If the three transcendent powers were to make a move and the divine diviner found out, they would be in big trouble. This matter is very strange. If it's not the three transcendent powers, I'm afraid they can't get away with it. We have to find Ao as soon as possible. Otherwise, we'll be in a passive position. Longao nodded. Father, I'll try my best to contact Ao. However, the Tianwu continent is very far away from the Jojo continent. It'll be difficult for news to spread. When Ao left, he said that if the sect encountered any unsolvable problems, as long as I crushed this crystal ball, he would know. After thinking for a moment, Long Yi asked curiously, Father, as long as we hide in the Dragon Valley, I believe that no matter who it is, they won't be able to break the seal. Even the combined efforts of over 20 Nirvana realm martial artists, including the Myriad Beast's ancestor, were unable to break the seal of the Dragon Valley. There was no doubt that on this continent, unless the Divine Diviner and the Heavenly Tao personally descended, no one else could break the seal of the Sword World. It was because of this that Long Yi couldn't understand why his father was so anxious to find Ao. Longao sighed deeply. This time, I'm in such a hurry to find Ao. Besides this, there's an even more important matter. What is it? Long Yi became even more curious. The ancestor wants to see Ao. The ancestor? Long Batian. In the entire Dragon Valley, apart from Longao, perhaps only Long Yi and Longao knew about the reincarnation of their old ancestor Long Batian. The thought of 7 reincarnations was frightening. Moreover, both of them were very clear that if their old ancestor succeeded in his 7th reincarnation, his strength would certainly reach the supreme divine Tao realm. If the ancestor wants to see Ao, could it be that the ancestor has successfully reincarnated? Longao seemed to be able to guess the doubts in Long Yi's heart. Before he could speak, Longao said, I don't know if the ancestor has successfully reincarnated, but 3 days ago, the ancestor's image suddenly appeared and told us to find Ao in the shortest time possible. It seems that the ancestor has something important to say. I see. Father, I'll continue to contact Ao now. Since the ancestor was looking for Ao, Long Yi didn't hesitate and left immediately. Inside the pavilion, Longao's eyes grew deeper and deeper. Suddenly, he stood up and bowed respectfully, Ancestor. Outside the pavilion, a layer of light suddenly appeared, and Long Batian's figure appeared on it. Haosha, there's not much time left. My influence can't last much longer. When Ao returns, kick me and tell him about this. Yes, Ancestor. Please speak. Until now, Longao still did not know whether the old ancestor in front of him had successfully reincarnated. However, Longao was very clear in his heart that in the dragon sect, the old ancestor was the strongest after Ao. If the old ancestor could successfully reincarnate, it would be a great help to the sect. P.S. I went to the grave today, so I'm late. Sorry, I'll try to rush out a 3,000-word chapter later. Many people say that Little Nine doesn't update much now because he's too busy. Starting tomorrow, he'll update at least 5 chapters a day, and try to update as early as possible. Chapter 1533. Swoosh. Longao caught it, and a black object appeared in his hand. It was a medallion. What did the patriarch mean by this? In 10 days, the astral purgatory will open. Tell Ao to take this medallion to the astral sea region and enter the astral purgatory. It'll be up to Ao's luck to see if he can obtain any opportunities there. As soon as he finished speaking, The image vanished without a trace. Martial Heaven Continent, outside the Myriad Beast Gate. Longao, who had been guarding the Myriad Beast Gate this entire time, immediately turned and shot in the direction of the 9 Provinces continent. When he had left the Dragon Valley, he had left a crystal ball with his grandfather. The meaning was simple. If the Dragon Valley was in danger, his grandfather could crush the crystal ball. Then no matter where he was, he would be able to sense it. Longao was very clear in his heart that if it wasn't something important, he believed that his grandfather and father would definitely not crush the crystal ball. After all, his grandfather and father knew that he had something very important to do. Since that was the case, what exactly happened in the Dragon Valley that made his grandfather and father crush the crystal ball? Panicking, Longao rushed to the 9 Provinces continent as quickly as possible. With Longao's speed, he should be able to reach the Dragon Valley in less than 2 days. However, things had already come to this, and Longao seemed to be in no hurry. He continuously used teleportation, and even relied on the strength of Purple Spirit to increase his speed to the extreme. In this way, Longao had already smoothly returned to the Dragon Valley in about 12 hours. 9 Provinces continent. Within the Dragon Valley, Longao quietly entered the Dragon Valley. With Longao's strength, no one knew about it. When Longhaosha saw Longao, his face immediately lit up, and said with a smile, "Aoa, seeing that you are fine, grandfather is relieved." Seeing that his grandfather was safe and sound and had a relaxed expression on his face, Longao was curious to the extreme. He did not know what had happened in the Dragon Valley. Why was his grandfather so anxious to summon him back? "Grandpa, what happened?" He couldn't crush the crystal ball until the last moment. "Aoa, it's like this. Sit down and listen to me slowly." Nodding, the two of them sat facing each other, and Longhaosha began to talk about what had happened. There was no one around the pavilion, and aside from Long Yi, no one else was allowed to come here. After listening, Longao had already guessed who the person who took action to assassinate the sect was. "Grandfather, it's just as you said. This matter is definitely not done by the 3 superpowers. According to my guess, the ones who assassinated the disciples of our Dragon Valley should be the Black Sky sect and the Purple Thunder sect." He was a little shocked. Longhaosha didn't have the slightest bit of suspicion. However, he couldn't understand why the Violet Thunder sect and Black Sky sect would suddenly target his Dragon Valley. Could it be that they had nothing better to do? "Grandpa, although the 3 transcendent powers wouldn't dare to make a move against us due to the threat of the Divine Diviner, they can still borrow a knife to kill us. I'm sure Grandpa knows what the Violet Thunder sect and Heavenly Mystic sect will do. However, other than Yi Wuren, there shouldn't be anyone else from the Violet Thunder sect who would dare to make a move." Nodding, Longhaosha roughly understood the situation. He didn't ask any further because he had already decided that no matter what Aoa did, he and the Dragon Valley would support him unconditionally. "Aoa, the reason why I called you back so urgently, other than this matter, is also because of the old ancestor." "Old ancestor?" This time, Longao was pleasantly surprised. Back then, the old ancestor had chosen to reincarnate 7 times. Until now, there hadn't been any news about him. It wasn't easy for him to obtain news about him, but he didn't know if the old ancestor had already been implicated. Now that the old ancestor had appeared, it could only mean one thing. The old ancestor had successfully reincarnated. If that was the case, the Dragon Valley would have another supreme expert. Aoa, the old ancestor only left behind an image. However, before you could return, he had already disappeared. As for whether the old ancestor had successfully reincarnated, I don't know. The old ancestor wanted me to pass a message to you. Even his grandfather didn't know whether the old ancestor had successfully reincarnated or not. If that was the case, it seemed that whether the old ancestor had successfully reincarnated was still an unknown. "Grandfather, what message did the old ancestor leave for me?" Longhaosha took out the token that Long Batian had given him and said, "The old ancestor wants you to go to the Outer Sea, which is the Starry Sea region, in 10 days to enter the astral purgatory. This token is the key. I don't know anything else." After receiving the medallion, Longao did not know what the astral purgatory that the old ancestor mentioned was. Grandfather, during this period of time, the Dragon Valley shouldn't casually enter the Dragon Valley. When I return from the outer sea, I will personally deal with this matter. Since things had already come to this, even if Longao didn't want to agree, he had no choice. He could only helplessly say, don't worry and go to the outer sea. Leave the family matters to me. Nodding with a smile, Longao stayed in the Dragon Valley for a total of 3 days. He spent 3 days with his grandfather and parents before leaving the Dragon Valley and heading to the outer sea. As for Yi Wuren from the Purple Thunder sect and the Black Heaven sect, Longao didn't have much time left. With only a few days left, it was impossible for him to achieve anything. Since that was the case, he might as well go to the outer sea and see what the old ancestors' astral purgatory was. Longao's cultivation had already reached the peak ultimate god realm. Within a year, he would definitely be able to break through to the Emperor God realm. As for whether he could break through to the Nirvana realm, even Longao wasn't completely confident. Longao was almost certain that the astral purgatory that the old ancestor wanted him to go to was a training ground. That was why Longao chose to go to the astral purgatory without any hesitation. He hoped that he could break through to the Emperor God realm during this training. A year's time was neither long nor short, especially for a cultivator. A year's time passed in the blink of an eye. The Tianwu continent was divided into 5 major plates. They were the Eastern continent, the Western region, the Southern Sea, the Northern Plains, and the Middle Tianwu continent. Among the 5 major plates, the Middle Tianwu continent was undoubtedly the strongest because the 10 directional cauldrons were located in the Middle Tianwu continent. However, many people were very clear that the strongest of the 5 major plates wasn't the Middle Tianwu continent, but the Outer Sea. The Outer Sea, the Crystal Palace, where the divine mathematician lived. Although there were countless islands in the Outer Sea with countless experts, the real deterrent wasn't the countless islands, but the divine mathematician in the Crystal Palace. There were countless islands in the Outer Sea, and it was unknown just how many islands there were that he didn't know about. Among all the islands that he knew, the God Island was the most powerful. This was publicly acknowledged in the Outer Sea. Longao had met the god Dao once before. There were also 8 major islands, namely Sky Universe Island, Sunset Island, Rising Cloud Island, Azura Island, Dark Night Island, Passionless Island, Death Island, Star Moon Island, Extinguished Sun Island, and Lone Star Island. Longao already understood that even though the strength of the Outer Sea was very strong, there was only one true overlord, and that was the so-called Divine Island. As for the other islands, including the 8 major islands, they were all negligible. Longao had calculated that the Divine Island's power should be about the same as the 10 directional cauldrons. From that, it could be seen that the Outer Sea's power was inferior to the Martial Heaven continents. If the 10 directional cauldrons joined hands, not only would they be able to dominate the Martial Heaven continent, but they would also be able to dominate the Outer Sea's countless islands. Let alone ordinary islands, even the Divine Island wouldn't be able to resist them. Inside the token, there was a message left behind by the old ancestor. Longao had roughly determined the location of the Starry Sea region according to the token. It was the center of the entire Outer Sea, and the Starry Purgatory was at the bottom of the sea. There are still 3 days before the Starry Purgatory opens. At this time, I still can't get close to the Starry Sea region. Longao tried to get close to the Starry Sea region. As soon as he touched the Starry Sea region, he would be suppressed by a powerful aura. If it wasn't for the fact that his physical defense was already very strong, he believed that the current him would have been crushed into a meat patty. The Divine Island, inside the main hall. The Island Lord of the Divine Island, Yi Nantian, and the Great Elder, Yi Wuling, were looking at each other. Great Elder, after 3 days, the Starry Purgatory will open. This time, not only the Divine Island, but also the other 3 islands will take action. If we want to get that thing from the Starry Purgatory, I'm afraid it won't be an easy task. Nodding, Yi Wuling's face was a bit dignified. He said, only warriors under the Nirvana realm can enter the Starry Purgatory. When the Starry Purgatory opened, there were 5 keys. The The Divine Island and the other 3 islands each got 1 key. However, the last one disappeared without a trace. After so many years, the Starry Purgatory has opened 4 times, but we haven't succeeded in getting that thing. This is the 5th time the Starry Purgatory will open. Great Elder, is there something fishy about this? Nodding, Yi Wuling thought for a while and said, Nantien, in the past, the 4 islands each got a token, and thus, we smoothly entered the Starry Purgatory 4 times. When we entered the Starry Purgatory for the first time, I saw a stone tablet with my own eyes. The information on it said that the Starry Purgatory can only be opened 5 times. After 5 times, the Starry Purgatory will be completely sealed. Even if we have the key, at that time, we can't open the Starry Purgatory. Yi Wuling's face changed. Yi Nantien thought for a while and said, Great Elder, we have entered the Starry Purgatory 4 times, but we still can't get that thing. I'm afraid. Waving his hand, Yi Wuling sneered and said, according to the legends, the Starry Purgatory is a space left by a warrior at the peak of the martial Tao. If we can get the inheritance of the Starry Purgatory, you and I will very likely inherit it, break through the Nirvana realm, and reach the peak of the martial Tao. The peak of the martial Tao was the realm that every warrior dreamed of reaching. Not only Yi Nantien, but also Yi Wuling. Nantien, this time, I have decided to send Yi Hua, Yi Chen, Yi Wen, Yi Yi, Yi Mai and Madman Yi into the Starry Purgatory. Chapter 1534. Great Elder, I have no problem with the other 5. As for Madman Yi, I have made up my mind. Without giving Yi Nantien a chance to refute, Yi Wuling's figure disappeared. Although Yi Nantien was the island lord, the one who could make the decisions was not Yi Nantien, but Yi Wuling. A sigh was heard. In the outer sea, the God Island was the absolute overlord, just like the 10 great cauldrons in the Middle Sky Martial Continent. Apart from the God Island, there were 3 other islands that could threaten the God Island. They were the Nirvana Island, the Illusion Island, and the Heavenly Demon Island. Just like the God Island had guessed, the 3 islands were going all out for the opening of the Star Purgatory. In the legends, in the Star Purgatory, there was the inheritance of the peak warriors. No matter who it was, anyone who got it could reach the peak of the martial path. The most depressing thing was that the Star Purgatory had some kind of restriction that prevented Nirvana Realm warriors from entering. 3 days before the opening of the Star Purgatory, the 4 islands gathered outside the Starsea region. Longao, who had never left, was surprised to see dozens of people suddenly appear, but he soon calmed down. Seems like these people are also here for the Star Purgatory. Seeing Yi Nantien and Yi Wuling, Longao confirmed their identities. The 4 islands in the outer sea. The Supreme Island in the outer sea, the God Island, and the other 3 islands, the Nirvana Island, the Illusion Island, and the Heavenly Demon Island. If Nirvana Realm warriors couldn't enter the Star Purgatory, Longao was relieved. Longao didn't know much about the Star Purgatory. Island Lord Yi, long time no see. How have you been? Longao and Yi Nantien had met once, and they didn't have a big grudge. Otherwise, Yi Nantien wouldn't have let it go when Longao left the outer sea. He seemed surprised. Yi Nantien wasn't a fool. Was it a coincidence to meet Longao here? Could it be that Longao also knew about the Purgatory of Stars? Yi Nantien smiled and said, Longao, I want to ask, why are you here? Astral Purgatory. Yi Nantian's and Yi Wuling's expressions instantly changed after hearing those words. Other than the upper echelons of the 4 islands, practically no one in the outer sea or even the entire martial heaven continent knew about the Purgatory of Stars. Longao, how do you know about the Astral Purgatory? The 2 of them had already released their killing intent. Since Longao already knew about the Astral Purgatory, he would definitely die. Apart from the 4 islands, no one else was allowed to enter the Astral Purgatory. He smiled. Longao directly took out the token from his bosom, which was the so-called key, and said, I accidentally obtained this token. Although I already know about the Purgatory of Stars, I still don't know much about the Purgatory of Stars. Looking at the key in Longao's hand, their hearts skipped a beat. Yi Wuling and Yi Nantian looked at each other and saw a trace of shock in each other's eyes. There were a total of 5 keys to open the Star Purgatory. The 4 islands each had 1 key, and the 5th key had never been found. Longao, where did you obtain the token? Forgive me for not being able to tell you. How about we make a deal? Tell me. Yi Wuling and Yi Nantian didn't immediately attack because they didn't know how Longao obtained the token. Moreover, they also wanted to know what the deal was that Longao was talking about. Longao's spirit had already entered the token, so he knew some things about the astral purgatory. The astral purgatory had opened 4 times in total. This was the 5th time. No matter which time it opened, a token could allow 6 people to enter at the same time. 5 keys could allow 30 people to enter altogether. The 4 islands had arrived here at the same time. Longao was almost certain that the 4 islands each had a key, so each island could only allow 6 people to enter at most. Longao himself was only 1 person. In other words, the tokens that he possessed still had 5 slots. Island Lord Yi, I'm only 1 person entering the astral purgatory this time. I can give the remaining 5 tokens to the mythical island. As a deal, Island Lord Yi only needs to give me 1 thing. What thing? The 2 of them were naturally very excited to have 5 more tokens. The more people who entered the astral purgatory, the higher the chance of obtaining the inheritance. After all, in their opinion, even if Longao entered the astral purgatory, he wouldn't be able to make any big waves. Ancient Seal Script. Ancient Seal Script. Longao, how did you know that the mythical island has the Ancient Seal Script? Longao himself didn't know, but the command token had passed on to him. Before entering the Star Purgatory, he must obtain the ancient seal text of the mythical island. Longao was very clear in his heart. Since the old ancestor had said so, it seemed that there must be a purpose. To be honest, my ancestor once obtained the ancient seal script. My Long clan has always had an ancestral rule. No matter who it is, as long as they have the ability, they must take back the ancient seal script. Before the 2 of them could speak, Longao continued, the ancient seal script is useless to the mythical island. In exchange for 5 tokens to enter the astral purgatory, the mythical island won't lose anything. 5 tokens in exchange for an ancient seal script. Longao was very confident that as long as the 2 of them weren't fools, they would definitely agree. He sneered and suddenly said, Longao, if I kill you now and take the token, wouldn't it be better for the mythical island? Longao was very calm. He said indifferently, you can try. Since I dared to show myself, I'm not afraid of the mythical island. Although Longao was famous in the Tianwu continent and the Zhozhou continent, he was only a powerful supreme expert in the external sea. Because no one in the external sea knew about Longao's past, the external sea never cared about the matters of the Tianwu continent. The calmer Longao appeared, the more uncertain the 2 of them were. After all, it was better to be safe than sorry. If they failed, they wouldn't even have 5 tokens. The ancient seal script was useless to the mythical island. If they could exchange it for 5 tokens to enter the astral purgatory, it wouldn't be a bad thing. After thinking about it, Yi Nantian nodded. He took out an iron sheet from his bosom and directly threw it out. This is the ancient seal script. Longao, I hope you will keep your promise. Otherwise, you should know the consequences. With a smile, Longao caught the ancient seal script. The old ancestor wanted him to get this thing before entering the astral purgatory. It seemed like it had something to do with the astral purgatory. However, Longao naturally wouldn't say anything. Originally, the mythical island could only send 6 people. Because of Longao's participation, the original 6 had directly increased to 11. They had 5 more people than the other 3 islands. In this way, the mythical island would have a great advantage. Chapter 1535. After successfully obtaining the ancient seal text, Longao heaved a sigh of relief. Island Lord Yi, I will appear in 3 days. As soon as he finished speaking, Longao turned and left. After a while, he disappeared without a trace. His face was very gloomy. Great Elder, Longao has an extraordinary background. Not only does he have the key, but he also knows the ancient seal text. It seems that he came prepared. Yi Wulin nodded. Yi Wulin thought for a while and said, "The Purgatory of Stars is about to open. Let's not complicate things. When he leaves the Purgatory of Stars, kill him without mercy." Since things had come to this point, this was the only way. Longao did not leave the outer sea because there were less than 3 days left before the Purgatory of Stars opened. Outer sea. At the bottom of the sea, in the middle of a secluded coral. Longao looked at the ancient seal text in his hand and was very curious. He did not know why the ancestor gave him this iron sheet. Could it be related to the Purgatory of Stars? Longao, your ancestor Longbatian is not simple. Looking at Xiling who suddenly appeared, Longao asked curiously, "Xiling, what do you mean? The Purgatory of Stars should be related to your ancestor. As for this ancient seal text, it is actually a powerful martial skill." Martial skill? The ancient seal text was a martial skill? Longao was very surprised. He never thought that the ancient seal text would be a powerful martial skill. If that was the case, did the ancestor want him to cultivate this martial skill? It was somewhat impossible. If the ancient seal text was a powerful martial skill, why didn't the mythical island get it after so many years? As if he could guess Longao's thoughts, Xiling said, "Longao, the martial skill in the ancient seal text will naturally open after you enter the Purgatory of Stars. But I still want to remind you, don't casually trust anyone, even your ancestor." What did Xiling mean? Was there something fishy about the ancestor? Longao knew very well that Xiling wouldn't have said that for no reason unless something had happened. "Xiling, how's Bai Ling?" Until now, Bai Ling still hadn't woken up. Longao was very worried. After all, Bai Ling still hadn't woken up. It didn't mean that Bai Ling was fine. He shook his head. Xiling looked helpless as well. Even she didn't know what was going on with her sister. Helpless, Xiling said dejectedly, "Bai Ling should be recovering. As for whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, I don't know. However, there's one thing I'm sure of. Once my sister wakes up, she'll recover at least 2/3 of her strength." What was the point? Longao wanted Bai Ling to wake up. As for whether she could recover, that was a matter for the future. He wanted to, but he was powerless. Longao could only pray in his heart that Bai Ling would wake up as soon as possible. "Longao, I'll keep an eye on Bai Ling for you. Your top priority now is to think about the Purgatory of Stars." Purgatory of Stars? Xiling, do you know a lot about the Purgatory of Stars? He nodded. Xiling suddenly said, "The Purgatory of Stars was left behind by an expert who had reached the peak of martial arts. Your ancestor wanted you to enter the Purgatory of Stars so that you could inherit his legacy and break through to the peak of martial arts as soon as possible." After hearing Xiling's words, Longao became more and more confused. He was a little confused. "Xiling, according to what you said, my ancestor wanted me to inherit his legacy and break through to the peak of martial arts. Then he must have done it for my own good. Xiling, you don't have to do this with me. If you have something to say, just say it." Longao's intuition told him that this matter was definitely not that simple. Just as he expected. "Longao, this matter is a little troublesome. I can't explain it clearly in such a short time. Just as you thought, the Purgatory of Stars will be of great help to you. I just want you to be careful of Longbatian." Longao could clearly sense that Xiling had not finished speaking. What exactly was it? Xiling didn't want to say more, and Longao didn't continue to ask. Just as Xiling said, since the Purgatory of Stars was of great help to him, then he could talk about it later. He had to deal with the Purgatory of Stars first. "Longao, I just sensed your token. The Purgatory of Stars is very big, but you have to remember, after entering the Purgatory of Stars, immediately go to the center of the Purgatory of Stars, because the inheritance of the expert who had reached the peak of martial arts is in the center." "Thank you." Xiling didn't continue speaking. He turned around and turned into a purple light, entering the dragon seal space. Longao also entered the dragon seal space and came to Bai Ling's side. Looking at Bai Ling in front of him, his heart was filled with guilt. As long as Bai Ling didn't wake up, Longao couldn't forgive himself. Bai Ling, don't worry. No matter what happens, Brother Long will wake you up and help you recover to your peak state. Until now, Longao still didn't know the strength of Xiling and Bai Ling at their peak. After all, even at the peak of martial arts, there were differences in strength. For example, the difference in strength between the divine mathematician and Tian Dao was huge. Master. Long Fu, what's the matter? Long Fu's expression changed again and again. After thinking for a while, he finally said, Master, once you enter the purgatory of stars and obtain the inheritance, are you going to accept it or reject it? Not knowing what Long Fu meant, Longao asked back, just say it. Master, I believe you already know about the reproduction of the origin energy. Back then, you chose to expel the origin energy in order to reproduce it yourself. If you enter the purgatory of stars this time, I hope that Master won't accept the peak of martial arts inheritance. For Master's future cultivation, it's best to reproduce the origin energy yourself. So that's how it was. Long Fu continued, if Master inherits the peak of martial arts inheritance, it will be as difficult as ascending to the heavens to break through more realms in the future. Once you reproduce the origin energy yourself and break through the peak of martial arts realm, it will be greatly beneficial to your future cultivation. Longao was already aware of what Xiling had said. Otherwise, he would have given up the origin source energy that he had risked his life to obtain back then for nothing. However, the peak of martial arts inheritance was different from the origin energy. This was because the origin energy could only be devoured after breaking through to the nirvana realm. The peak of martial arts inheritance didn't need to. Long Fu, no matter when, I will reproduce the origin energy myself. You can rest assured about this. However, there is one thing that I don't understand. I hope you can answer me truthfully. This time, it was Long Fu's turn to be curious. He said, Master, please ask. As long as Long Fu knows something, I will tell you everything. Longao could clearly feel the change in Long Fu, especially after Long Fu chose him and not Long Tian. The change became even greater. Chapter 1536. Long Fu, is it impossible to reproduce your own source energy? It's difficult for others, but it shouldn't be a problem for you, Master. Longao was very curious. Although he was very confident in his own talent, Longao knew his own limits. Not to mention the others, just the myriad beast ancestor, Long Tian, Jian Tian, and the others were the strongest in the continent. Even so, these super geniuses had not been able to reproduce their own source energy for nearly 10,000 years. If there wasn't something fishy about it, he wouldn't believe it even if he was beaten to death. Long Fu, for 10,000 years, no one has been able to reproduce their own source energy. Don't you think there's something fishy about it? An unspeakable expression appeared on his face. Seeing Long Fu's expression, Longao already knew that Long Fu definitely knew about it. Long Fu, are you still not going to tell me at this time? Longao sighed deeply. Long Fu had a helpless expression. He sighed and said, Master, I was planning to wait until your cultivation base reached the nirvana realm before telling you about it. Longao didn't say anything, but his expression was very resolute. Master, since you want to know now, I'll tell you. Here came the main topic. Master, I believe that you've already guessed it. None of the Nirvana realm martial artists in the Sky Martial continent are able to reproduce their own source energy. The biggest reason is because all the source energy in the Sky Martial continent has been sealed by the Heavenly Tao. What do you mean? Longao naturally knew that the Heavenly Taos had sealed all the source energy. Master, you don't know, but countless years ago, the continent was filled with source energy. As long as your cultivation base reached the Nirvana realm, you could start trying to devour the source energy. At that time, it was also known as the Ancient Era. Longao didn't say anything. He just listened quietly. Back then, the Heavenly Taos were heavenly geniuses. In just a short 100 years, they had reached the peak of the martial path and were constantly slaughtering other peak experts. Not only that, the Heavenly Taos also sealed all the source energy. As time passed, the number of peak experts in the continent gradually decreased. So that was the case. Longao found it hard to imagine just how powerful the heavenly Daos were. How were they able to seal all the core energy of the martial heaven continent? Just now, Long Fu had said that the martial heaven continent had been filled with source energy during the ancient era. Long Fu, I have another thing to ask you. Master, please speak. He thought for a moment. In the end, Long Ao was prepared to ask. Long Ao was very clear about his own cultivation. If it was before, he definitely wouldn't have asked, but now the situation was completely different. He had successfully broken through to the ultimate God realm and was not far from the Nirvana realm. In Long Ao's opinion, it was time for him to know everything. In the Nirvana realm, there were differences in strength. Long Fu, is the pinnacle of martial arts a general term for realms? I would like to ask about the specific division of the peak of martial arts. He wasn't surprised at all. Long Fu seemed to have guessed it and said in a depressed tone, Master, it doesn't seem appropriate for you to ask this question at this time. Not suitable? Not suitable again. Every time he heard Long Fu say this, Long Ao felt a deep sense of helplessness. Long Fu, I know what you mean. You are worried that with my cultivation, knowing too much will have a great impact on my cultivation. Long Fu didn't say anything, but his meaning was very clear. Long Fu, I have been unable to let go of the matter of the peak of martial arts. At this time, I should know about it. Don't worry, even if I know about it, it won't affect my cultivation. He nodded. Since things had come to this point, Long Fu could only nod helplessly. Master, as you have guessed, the peak of martial arts is just a general term. Sure enough. It seemed that his guess was correct. The peak of martial arts was just a general term for a realm. The peak of martial arts is also known as the Starry Sky Realm. The Starry Sky Realm? At this moment, Long Ao finally knew that the so-called peak of martial arts was the Starry Sky Realm. It seemed that many people didn't know about it. If Long Fu hadn't told him, it would have been extremely difficult for him to find out. Long Ao still didn't say anything and listened quietly. Long Fu, you go first. I will tell Long Ao about the Starry Sky Realm. Okay. Long Fu turned and left. Xiling asked seriously, Long Ao, do you really want to know about the Starry Sky Realm? Seeing Long Ao nod, Xiling continued, you have to think about it carefully. Once you know about it, your state of mind will definitely change. Do you want to know about this kind of thing that is not worth the loss? I am determined to get it. If he didn't ask, he didn't know that Long Ao could still control himself. However, Long Fu had already told him half of the story. If he chose to give up now, would Long Ao agree? In that case, I will tell you the truth. Long Fu just said that the peak of martial arts is also known as the Starry Sky Realm. Once you break through the peak of martial arts, you will embark on the path of Starry Sky Cultivator. Starry Sky Cultivator? Long Ao, above the Nirvana realm is the Starry Sky Cultivator. Starry Sky Cultivators mainly cultivate the power of origin. Starry Sky Cultivators are divided into 9 realms, namely Level 1 Cultivator, Level 2 Cultivator, Level 3 Cultivator, Level 4 Cultivator, Level 5 Cultivator, Level 6 Cultivator, Level 7 Cultivator, Level 8 Cultivator, and Level 9 Cultivator. These 9 cultivation levels are collectively known as the Starry Sky Realm. Cultivators from Level 1 to Level 9 were collectively known as the Starry Sky Realm. Long Ao finally knew that the peak of martial arts above the Nirvana realm was the so-called Starry Sky Realm. Long Ao also realized that the peak of martial arts he had worked so hard to reach was not the end of martial arts. When could he reach the end of the 9 realms of Starry Sky Cultivators? Xiling, I want to ask, what are the levels of Tiandao and Oracle? I still don't know Oracle's cultivation level. As for Tiandao, according to what I sensed back then, Tiandao should be a Level 8 Starry Sky Cultivator. Level 8 Starry Sky Cultivator? Long Ao was very depressed. Tiandao's cultivation level was almost at the peak of Starry Sky Cultivators. Even if Wanshou Ancestor and the others swallowed the power of origin and broke through to the Starry Sky Realm, there was still a huge gap between their strength and Tiandao's. Long Ao, I believe you have already guessed that there are 9 realms of starry sky cultivators. The difference of one realm is a huge gap in strength. Longao nodded. He almost understood this point. It was like the Great Emperor realm. Red, orange, yellow, green, cyan, blue, purple, black, white, and gold Great Emperor realm. The difference of each realm was huge. Chapter 1537. Not only that. Divine Mathematician's strength was obviously above Tian Dao. If that was the case, since Tian Dao was an 8th level starry sky cultivator, then there was no doubt that Divine Mathematician was a 9th level starry sky cultivator. A 9th level starry sky cultivator was a true expert at the peak of martial Dao and also the strongest at the peak of starry sky. Longao was very puzzled. Since Tian Dao's cultivation had broken through the 8th level starry sky cultivator realm, why did he seal the origin power? According to Tian Dao's strength, in the entire Tianwu continent, except for Divine Mathematician, it was very difficult for anyone to surpass him. Tian Dao was still too cautious. It was better to be safe than sorry. If someone really broke through the 7th level starry sky cultivator realm, or even the 8th level starry sky cultivator realm, then they could completely pose a threat to Tian Dao. Tian Dao would never allow such an accident to happen. All of a sudden, a figure flashed in Longao's mind. It was the Black Demon sealed in the draconic mystic realm. According to legend, the Black Demon was invincible in the world. Even Tian Dao was no match for the Black Demon. In that case, the Black Demon's cultivation had reached the 9th level starry sky cultivator realm. Longao, the path of martial Dao is endless. You are now only in the hierarch realm. The most important thing is to break through the Nirvana realm. As for the so-called starry sky realm, it is not something you need to think about now. He nodded. How could Longao not know what Xiling meant? As Xiling said, with his current strength, it was useless to think too much. After all, starry sky cultivators were too far away from him. I understand. Without continuing to dwell on the matter of starry sky cultivators, Longao prepared with all his strength. Because there were only 3 days left before the star purgatory opened. At that time, it was still unknown whether he could come out of the star purgatory alive. 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. With the star purgatory opened, there was no aura restriction around the star sea region. In other words, at this time, no matter who it was, even Xiantian realm cultivators, could easily step into the center of the star sea region, the so-called star purgatory. However, the 4 islands had sealed off the entire star sea region. No matter who it was, no one could enter without permission. There were 5 keys to the star purgatory. Each key could bring 6 people in. With 5 keys, a total of 30 people could enter. The 3 islands had a total of 18 people. Since Longao was alone, the mythical island had 11 people. The divine island didn't want to provoke any trouble. Therefore, this matter hadn't spread out. In other words, until now, the 3 big islands didn't know that the divine island had 5 more quotas. Longao, in the purgatory of stars, there are inheritances at the peak of martial arts. I believe you already know that. I will not inherit the legacy. Do you think I'll believe you? Longao smiled and immediately swore a blood oath. He seemed to be surprised, because he couldn't figure out why Longao chose to enter the astral purgatory. Why didn't he inherit the peak of martial arts? Did Longao lose his mind? Yinantian didn't doubt Longao's blood oath at all. The blood oath was the most terrifying oath in the world. No matter who it was, even if they were at the peak of martial arts, they would not dare to make a blood oath casually. Otherwise, the consequences would be unimaginable. Since Longao had made a blood oath, Yinantian couldn't say anything more. Longao, since you won't inherit the legacy, I hope you can help the mythical island to obtain the peak of martial arts. What do you think? 1 more person's help was equivalent to 1 more power. Among the 30 people who entered the star purgatory this time, except for Longao, the other 29 people were all god emperors. It seemed that the 4 big islands had put in a lot of effort for the peak of martial arts. Even the 4 big islands couldn't afford to lose so many god emperors. However, in front of the peak of martial arts, not to mention 6 god emperors. Even Nirvana realm warriors could be lost easily. No problem. Longao didn't even think about it and agreed directly. Boom. There was a loud sound. The entire star sea domain suddenly began to tremble violently. Rumble. Rumble. The sound was deafening. The star purgatory has opened. Just as Yi Nantian finished his words, 30 figures shot out from all directions. Including Longao, all of them shot towards the center of the star sea domain, which was also the so-called Gate of Stars. Phew. 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 In the blink of an eye, all 30 figures had disappeared into the Gate of Stars. 30 people? The island masters of the 3 big islands and the various elders were shocked beyond words. Under normal circumstances, the 4 big islands would have 4 keys. In other words, there would be a total of 24 people from the 4 big islands who could enter the star purgatory. If that was the case, what was up with the extra 6 people? Looking at the 6 extra people, 5 of whom were from the mythical island, the people from the other 3 islands had already seen them. Therefore, the people from the other 3 islands looked at Yi Nantian, Yi Wuling, and the others coldly. Their meaning was clear. Island Master Yi, how does the mythical island want to explain this matter? Everyone, to be honest, not long ago, a mysterious man came to me with a token. He said that as long as he could enter the star purgatory, he would give the mythical island 5 quotas. I believe everyone knows that 5 more people won't be of much help in finding the inheritance of the peak of martial arts. Bullshit. You mother-f***ka. Who would believe such nonsense? Of the 5 quotas, if your mythical island wants 2, we won't have any objections. At the very least, you should give us 1 each. You want to monopolize everything? All the Nirvana realm martial artists of the 3 major islands released their imposing aura. Even the God's Island was very afraid of them. However, under such circumstances, whether it was the 3 major islands or the God's Island, they couldn't casually take action. Humph. Yi Nantian, the mythical island is cheating. Even if you get the inheritance of the peak of martial arts, the 3 big islands won't accept it. After 1 month, no matter what, we will re-elect the mythical island. The 3 big islands didn't leave the Star Sea region because the star purgatory would last for at most 1 month. At that time, no matter whether the warriors who entered willingly or not, they would be automatically sent out. The inheritance of the peak of martial arts, no matter who it was, everyone wanted to get it. Because the inheritance of the peak of martial arts was the realm that every warrior dreamt of reaching. The 4 big islands didn't leave. They were waiting for the arrival of 1 month. In addition to wanting to see if their own disciples could get the inheritance of the peak of martial arts, more importantly, they wanted to see if the disciples of the other islands could get the inheritance of the peak of martial arts. If they didn't get it, then no matter which island it was, they would definitely kill the person who got the inheritance of the peak of martial arts. They would cut the weeds and eliminate the roots to prevent future troubles. P.S. The 4th chapter has been delivered. The last chapter will be updated after midnight. Xiao Ju has been here for a while, but there are still too many troublesome things. However, the 5 chapters will be delivered every day. Chapter 1538. Astral Purgatory. The vast space was boundless. 30 people were sent into the astral purgatory at the same time. The 30 people didn't leave immediately. Instead, they were divided into 5 groups. They looked at each other and saw a trace of vigilance in each other's eyes. The 18 people from Nirvana Island, Illusion Island, and Heavenly Demon Island were shocked when they saw 11 people from the mythical island enter. They didn't know what was going on. 11 people from the mythical island. Yi Hua, Yi Chen, Yi Wen, Yi Yi, Yi Mai Yi Lunatic, 11 people, without exception, were all emperor gods. As for the 18 people from the 3 islands, they were all emperor gods. Longao stood in one of the 5 groups, which made Longao himself very different. Who are you? According to Yi Nantian's order, the 11 people from the mythical island would treat Longao as external help. But what was the result? The 11 people didn't put Longao in their eyes. In everyone's opinion, if it wasn't for Longao having the key, he wouldn't have been able to enter. A hierarch warrior was the weakest among the 30 people. Any one of them could easily destroy Longao. How could such a person be the external help of the mythical island? The mythical island didn't admit it. Longao had already guessed it, so he wasn't surprised. Who I am, what does it have to do with you? Presumptuous. Before the people from the 3 islands could make a move, Longao had already turned and left. His speed was so fast that it was like a breeze. In the blink of an eye, he had disappeared without a trace. So fast. Everyone didn't realize that the other party's speed was so fast. Even so, they still didn't put Longao in their eyes. The gap between a hierarch and an emperor god was huge. Not to mention that everyone joined hands, any one of them could easily deal with the other party. The 4 groups looked at each other coldly. In an instant, the 29 people from the 4 groups left in 4 directions. Xiling, my divine soul has entered the token, but I can't sense the exact location of the Martial Dao Peak inheritance. He didn't care at all. If the Martial Dao Peak inheritance was so easy to find, then there would have been people who found it during the first 4 times the astral purgatory opened. Give me some time. Xiling hadn't recovered from his injuries yet, so it wouldn't be easy for him to sense the martial arts peak inheritance in his current state. Longao, Long Batian asked you to bring the ancient seal text into the astral purgatory. It seems like it's not as simple as comprehending a martial skill. I think so too. If it was just a martial technique, there was no need for the old ancestor to go so far. Could it be that the ancient seal script was the key to finding the inheritance of the pinnacle of martial arts? As if he could guess Longao's thoughts, Xiling said, Longao, I believe you have already guessed that the reason your ancestor allowed you to bring the ancient seal text into the purgatory of stars must be because of the inheritance of the peak of martial arts. Xiling, what should I do next? It's very simple. First, you only have to do one thing. You have to rely on the ancient seal text to comprehend the martial skills within the ancient seal text. If my guess is correct, the key to comprehending the peak martial arts inheritance is not the ancient seal text, but the martial skills within the ancient seal text. However, Longao's expression was very serious because he had been in the astral purgatory for a whole day and night. No matter how hard he tried, he still couldn't sense the martial skill in the ancient seal text. It's very difficult to comprehend the martial skill in the ancient seal text. I've been thinking about this for a long time. Longao, you and I both know that there is only one way to comprehend the ancient seal text in the astral purgatory. What is it? Longao couldn't wait. Longao had already decided that no matter when, no matter where, no matter what happened, he wouldn't choose to inherit the Martial Dao Peak inheritance. He wouldn't choose to inherit the Martial Dao Peak inheritance, but Longao didn't intend to give it up. The reason was very simple. Longao had already thought that if he could obtain the Martial Dao Peak inheritance, even if he didn't inherit it, he could let his family members inherit it. In that case, someone in the Dragon Valley would become a starry sky cultivator. Because of this, no matter what happened in this trip to the astral purgatory, he had to obtain the Martial Dao Peak inheritance. Longao, the astral purgatory. As long as we can find the astral purgatory and retrieve the ancient seal text, I believe you will be able to comprehend the martial skill. Where is it? Follow me. Longao didn't hesitate at all. He followed Xiling's aura and headed east at his fastest speed. The astral purgatory was surrounded by black fog, as if it was a volcano. It was surrounded by rocks, and there was a huge black boulder in the middle. There was a dent in the boulder. Longao only took a glance at it, and his face instantly lit up. The indentation on the boulder was in the shape of a sheet of metal. If that was the case, it would be just as Xiling had guessed. Only in this place would one be able to comprehend the ancient seal text's martial techniques. Longao, you have to be careful. Longao nodded. He took out the ancient seal text from his arms and gently placed it into the dent in the boulder. It was neither big nor small, neither fat nor thin, just right. The entire iron sheet was embedded. Before Longao could react, the boulder had already released a white light, enveloping Longao, and he disappeared on the spot. It was a strange space, surrounded by white air currents. There were no flowers, trees, birds, or beasts. Other than the air currents, there was nothing. Where was this place? Was it the space where the boulder was? A little dumbfounded, Longao was about to release his own aura and sense it properly when the airflow in front of him suddenly fluctuated violently. Then, the white airflow began to gather. In just a few seconds, the white airflow had already gathered into a figure. The blurry figure could be clearly seen that it was a middle-aged man with a burly appearance. "Who are you?" Longao was very vigilant, because he felt that the person who suddenly appeared in front of him had a very strong aura, just like the heavenly Tao. If that was the case, the person in front of him should be a starry sky cultivator. "Ha ha ha, you entered my astral space, but you don't know who I am. How funny. But congratulations, you are the second person to enter the astral space in the past 10,000 years. The first person didn't pass the test and has already fallen. I hope you won't disappoint me." Sure enough, Longao had already guessed that the person who suddenly appeared in front of him was the master of the astral purgatory, the so-called expert at the peak of martial arts. "Senior, how should I address you?" "You can call me Tian Chen." "Senior Tian Chen." Tian Chen. Longao had never thought that he would enter the astral space and meet the master of the astral purgatory, Tian Chen, just because he wanted to comprehend the ancient seal text's martial arts. He had unknowingly entered the astral space and met the master of the astral purgatory, Tian Chen. Chapter 1539. You've entered my astral space and are qualified to inherit the inheritance. Longao did not speak. Now, go to the astral purgatory. As long as you can obtain the Heart of Stars, you've passed the test. Before Longao could speak, Tian Chen continued, "But since you've come here, I won't let you go empty-handed." Before Longao could react, a martial technique's information suddenly appeared in his mind. As soon as the martial technique was taught, Longao's body disappeared from the astral space. He was very depressed. He thought he could get a powerful martial technique. Who would have thought that the martial technique taught by Tian Chen was useless? The only use was to help him obtain the Heart of Stars. He felt helpless. He did not continue to think about it. Tian Chen had just said that if he wanted to get the peak of martial arts inheritance, he must first obtain the Heart of Stars. In the center of the astral purgatory, Longao was very clear in his heart. Not only him, he believed that everyone on the 4 islands would head towards the center at this time. "You're Longao?" Looking at the 11 people in front of him, Longao smiled and nodded. "Yes, how should I address you?" "Madman Yi." It was the first time he heard this name. However, Longao could clearly sense that the most powerful person among the 11 people on the mythical island was Madman Yi. "Longao, the island master asked you to be our backyard. I'd like to ask, are you qualified?" "Phut." As soon as Madman Yi finished his words, the other 10 people all laughed. Their laughter was full of disdain and contempt because from the beginning to the end, the 11 people did not take Longao seriously. "Then what do you want?" Yi snorted and said disdainfully, "Longao, you're just a little ultimate god. You're not qualified to be here." He waved his hand. Madman Yi seemed to be very impatient and said, "Longao, cut the crap. If you're lucky enough to obtain the peak of martial arts inheritance, you must give it to us." So it was because of this. Longao fiercely cursed in his heart, but he still said indifferently, "Lunatic Long, I don't have the slightest bit of relationship with your God's island. If it wasn't for me this time, it would be impossible for you to have 5 more quotas." Arrogant. Before the crowd could get angry, Longao continued, "Even if I got the inheritance of the peak of martial arts, why should I give it to you? Who do you think you are?" Anger. Endless rage. These 11 people were the super geniuses of the mythical island. Normally, they were all high and mighty. They had never been humiliated like this before. Courting death. Yi Hua and Yi Wen took a big stride forward and rushed out. As they charged out, both of them released their supreme level 4 divine domains at the same time. The power of their divine domains stacked on top of one another was unimaginable. A level 3 supreme divine territory and a level 4 supreme divine territory could not be mentioned in the same breath. Longao released his level 3 unparalleled divine domain, but Yi Hua and Yi Wen didn't put it in their eyes at all. Like two cheetahs, they charged forward bravely without being affected in the slightest. Longao was dead for sure. But what was the result? Before Yi Hua and Yi Wen could react, Longao's level 3 supreme divine domain was suppressing Yi Hua's level 3 supreme divine domain. However, the result was the exact opposite. Longao's level 3 supreme divine domain was suppressing Yi Hua and Yi Wen's level 4 supreme divine domain. What was going on? Innate divine ability, dragon roar. When the dragon roar resounded, the flow of the surrounding space changed. The two's divine abilities were directly locked down. Innate divine ability, you are someone from a Long family. Everyone in the Tianwu continent knew that. Only disciples from a Long family could reproduce innate divine abilities. Adding the surname Long, Lunatic Yi and the others could almost say that Longao came from the Tianwu continent. Long family. Up until now, Lunatic Yi and the others had never thought that Longao came from a Long family. Long family meant something. Everyone was very clear in their hearts. Long family was equivalent to the mythical island. After all, the strength of the 10 Directions tripod wasn't just for show. Any one of them could easily mess up the situation in the outer seas. Lunatic Yi and the others looked at each other. They could see a trace of shock in each other's eyes. This person cannot be left alive. Understood. The others were very clear about Lunatic Yi's meaning. If the Long family knew about this, how would the mythical island deal with it? Unless it was a last resort, the mythical island was absolutely unwilling to provoke the Long family. While everyone was shocked, Longao not only locked down the two's bodies, but also used spatial teleportation to disappear from his original spot. Be careful. It's too late. Longao chuckled. As his cultivation base continued to grow, the power of spatial teleportation became stronger and stronger. Even if there was a difference of one level, it was still a pipe dream for the two of them to control Longao's spatial teleportation. If Longao's cultivation hadn't broken through to the peak hierarch realm, he believed that he wouldn't be able to do this. Now that he had broken through to the peak hierarch realm, he was only a step away from the God Emperor realm. Even if it was 1 against 2, Longao seemed to be more than enough. It was hard to imagine how strong Longao would be if he broke through to the God Emperor realm. Longao, you dare! Ha ha ha! Along with a burst of laughter, Longao didn't put Lunatic Yi's threat in his eyes. Because from the beginning to the end, he didn't treat the mythical island as a friend. This battle was unavoidable. Even if he didn't take action, the mythical island's people wouldn't hesitate to take action. Lunatic Yi was furious to the extreme. He had already said those words, but Longao still took action without any hesitation. He didn't put him in his eyes at all. If he could endure this, where would his face go? Where would the mythical island's face go? Lunatic Yi and the others took action at the same time, all of them shooting towards Longao's direction. Under normal circumstances, if a hierarch warrior fought against a God Emperor warrior, only death would await. Unless one had a great divine ability, it was almost impossible to counterattack. However, everyone already knew that Longao had a lot of secrets. Not only did he have his own divine ability, but his speed was also terrifyingly fast. Although they didn't want to admit it, the 9 people still didn't dare to gamble. After all, Yi Hua and Yi Wen's talent and strength were there for everyone to see. Even the mythical island couldn't afford to lose them. However, Lunatic Yi still underestimated Longao's strength. More importantly, he underestimated Longao's spatial teleportation. No matter how fast the 9 people were, they couldn't be faster than spatial teleportation. If people don't offend me, I won't offend them. If people offend me, I will pay them back double. Remember, from now on, you better not provoke me. Otherwise, I will kill whoever I see, regardless of whether they are men or women. Before the 9 people could react, they heard 5 words from his mouth. Time Shorekill technique. Chapter 1540. Time Rewind and Time Forward. Not only that, but Longao also used time prohibition. If they had been more careful, they might not have been hit. But, from the beginning to the end, the two did not put Longao in their eyes. As the saying goes, carelessness kills. This time, in order to end the battle quickly, Longao did not use any martial skills. Instead, he directly used the silent destroyer divine bow. He directly pulled the bow. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. 2 arrow lights instantly shot out. Destruction. Whether it was Yi Hua or Yi Wen, both of them were suppressed by the dragon roar and the time sure kill skill. They could not resist the silent destroyer divine bow's attack. Longao, I'm going to kill you. Looking at their own people being killed by Longao right under their noses, it was like being slapped hard in the face. This slap was especially loud. Trash. Longao turned and left. After a few spatial teleportations, his figure disappeared without a trace. Looking at the corpses on the ground and then looking at Longao who had disappeared, everyone was a little dumbfounded. Was Longao really a divine venerable warrior? No matter what happens, I'm going to cut you into pieces. Big brother, Longao is not simple. Not only does he have the divine ability to lock space, but his speed is also very fast. Before Yi could finish her words, Madman Yi waved his hand and said, "You have seen Longao's strength. He only used his divine ability to kill 2 people. If we are careful, we can easily deal with Longao." After thinking for a while, Madman Yi continued, "Longao killed my men. If we don't kill him, how can we explain it to the Divine Island?" Things had already reached this point. Even if everyone was worried, they could only follow Madman Yi's words. After successfully killing 2 people, Longao did not waste any time and immediately handed the divine soul to Long Fu. "Long Fu, if you use all your strength to refine it, how long would it take?" Giving him a taste of his own medicine. Longao's intention was very simple. He wanted to refine Yi Wen and Yi Hua into his soul slaves and then deal with Madman Yi and the others. One could completely imagine what kind of expression Madman Yi and the others would have if they were suddenly attacked by 2 soul servants. He thought for a moment. Long Fu didn't seem to be sure, but he knew what his master meant. "Master, 2 hours. If you go all out, you'll be able to succeed in an hour at most." 1 hour later. "All right, 1 hour." Longao had never imagined that Long Fu would be able to refine 2 souls into soul slaves in just an hour. Longao was prepared to head to the center of the astral purgatory to obtain the Heart of the Stars. However, after thinking about it, he decided to deal with the people of the mythical island first. Until now, Longao still didn't know what would happen if he headed to the center of the astral purgatory. If the people of the mythical island were to head to the center of the astral purgatory, wouldn't they be looking for trouble for him? Cut the weeds and eliminate the roots to prevent future troubles. Longao was very clear about one principle, and that was to be merciful to the enemy was to be cruel to oneself. Since then, Longao didn't immediately head to the center of the astral purgatory. Instead, he continued to follow the 9 people of the mythical island. Even if you beat Madman Yi and the others to death, they wouldn't believe that the person they were looking for was actually following them. If this matter were to be known by the 9 people, who knew what they would think? 1 hour later. "Big brother, the astral purgatory is vast and boundless. It's almost impossible for us to find Longao's trace. If you have something to say, just say it." Yi thought about it and said, "Big brother, our main purpose in entering the astral purgatory this time is not to kill Longao, but to find the inheritance of the peak of martial arts." I already understand what you mean. As you said, our purpose in entering the astral purgatory is to find the inheritance of the peak of martial arts. Longao, even if he can survive in the astral purgatory, once he leaves the astral purgatory, I will make him beg for death. In the end, Madman Yi still chose to give up looking for Longao, because the astral purgatory would only be open for 1 month. In just 1 month, once this opportunity was missed, the astral purgatory would be completely sealed. At that time, no matter who it was, even if the 5 of them were to gather, there would be no way to open the astral purgatory. In other words, this opportunity was the last one. No matter what happened, they couldn't miss this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Madman Yi, Long time no see. I trust you've been well since we last met. Longao could be considered to be rather shameless, because he had only separated from Madman Yi and the others for a short 1 hour, but he spoke as if it had been a long time. He even said, "I hope you've been well since we last met." However, Madman Yi and the others didn't mind, because they looked at the young man that suddenly appeared in front of them and seemed to be slightly surprised. They never imagined that Longao, who had already left, would choose to return for no reason. Could it be that Longao really had something to rely on and wasn't afraid of the 9 of them? Madman Yi didn't believe in Longao's strength. After all, Longao's cultivation realm was right there. If he wanted to fight the 9 of them alone, unless Longao had an invincible ability, but the possibility of that was almost zero. Longao, you really don't know what's good for you. Do you think that you're already invincible? Yi and the others looked at Longao in front of them. It would be a lie to say that they weren't afraid of him. No matter what, it was this young man who killed Yi Hua and Yi Wen, 2 god emperors, in one move just half an hour ago. If they didn't see it with their own eyes, they wouldn't believe that a hierarch could fight against 2 god emperors at the same time and kill them in one move. It was unbelievable, unimaginable. Madman Yi, why don't you and I make a bet? You'll definitely die in this battle. The calmer Longao appeared, the more uncertain the 8 of them were. Even Madman Yi seemed to have begun to mutter, because he did not know what medicine Longao was selling in his gourd. If Longao was really pretending to be a pig to eat a tiger, wouldn't the 9 of them capsize in the gutter and benefit the other 3 islands for nothing? Longao, since you're looking for death, I'll fulfill your wish. As soon as he finished speaking, Madman Yi's body directly rushed out. However, he went out quickly, but came back even faster. Not only Madman Yi, but even Yi and the other 8 people were shocked. They looked at the 2 figures in front of them dumbfoundedly. Yi Hua, Yi Wen. Didn't the 2 of them just die? If that's the case, why did the 2 of them suddenly appear here? What the hell happened? The 9 of them were all god emperors. They instantly sensed that the 2 of them weren't their true bodies, but their divine souls. However, they didn't know how they managed to survive. P.S. The 3 chapters 10 today will be added tomorrow. There will be a total of 8 chapters tomorrow. Chapter 1541. Madman Yi knew that Yi Hua and Yi Wen were already dead, but seeing it with his own eyes, he was still shocked. They retreated. Kill them. Big brother. They are no longer on our side. If they don't die, we will. Do you all want to die? Since things were already like this, Yi and the others didn't hesitate and surrounded the 2. Either you die or I die. Yi and the others were very clear that the 2's divine souls were already controlled by the other party. If they kept retreating, they would be the ones to suffer in the end. 8 against 2. Even if the 2's divine souls were strong, it was still impossible for them to fight 1 against 4. The result was obvious. Whether it was Yi Hua's corpse slave or Yi Wen's soul slave, in just a few seconds, the 2 soul slaves were destroyed. Longao, you've lost. I've lost. Looking at the 9 people in front of him, Longao had never seen such shameless people. Longao, today I'll let you experience the true strength of the God's Island. Madman Yi waved his hand, and the 8 people behind him rushed out. Each of them released cold killing intent, layer by layer, and directly enveloped Longao. Level 4 Supreme Divine Domains, layer by layer, the power was obvious. If it was an ordinary hierarch warrior, how could he fight 1 against 8? He would probably be killed in a second. Only Longao. A monster with a lot of variables. A madman who didn't walk the normal path. Longao's Supreme Divine Domain couldn't be evaluated by normal standards. Even if the 8 Supreme Divine Domains released by the 8 Supreme Divine Emperors overlapped, they still couldn't suppress Longao. Instead, they were suppressed by Longao's Supreme Divine Domain. It would be a lie to say that they weren't shocked. Today I'll let you all experience my strength. Longao didn't want to waste any more time. He wanted to end the battle quickly. Self-created martial technique, Heaven and Earth Morn. With Longao as the center, The air around him started to spin crazily. Soon, a huge air vortex appeared around Longao. It looked strange and powerful. Before the 8 of them could react, they were already sucked into the vortex. Outside the vortex, Madman Yi was not sucked into the whirlpool. It was unknown if he was afraid, but Madman Yi did not enter the whirlpool to save the 8 people. His face became more and more gloomy, as ugly as it could get. The 8 of them did not dare to be the slightest bit careless. They stood back to back and vigilantly watched from 8 different directions. Longao, you don't have to play tricks in front of us. The 8 people said that they were not afraid, but in their hearts, they were fearful to the extreme. I really want to see how powerful you all are. As soon as he finished speaking, Longao and the reincarnation avatar appeared at the same time. Not only that, but the reincarnation avatar also had a broken bow in his hand. It was the so-called Nirvana divine bow. Now that things had come to this point, Longao naturally wouldn't let anyone off. Cut the weeds and dig up the roots to prevent future troubles. 2 Longaos. Seeing 2 identical Longaos appear in front of them at the same time, the 8 of them were dumbfounded and seemed to be in disbelief. Longao. Before the 8 of them could finish speaking, Longao had already started attacking them. However, it was not a close-range attack, but a long-range attack. In other words, it was an aura and soul attack. Longao's cultivation base had successfully broken through to the peak ultimate god realm. He could already ignore Emperor God martial artists. Otherwise, he would not have casually used a soul attack. In any case, once the soul attack backfired, the consequences would be unimaginable. The reincarnation avatar's strength was far above Longao's as he had successfully broken through to the Emperor God realm. Not to mention using the Nirvana divine bow, his strength alone was enough to fight against 8 people. After all, the reincarnation avatar was not only powerful, but also immortal. The 8 of them could not break through the reincarnation avatar's defense. However, Longao was still prepared to use the reincarnation avatar's strength in order to end the battle quickly. A few minutes later, the whirlpool disappeared and Longao's figure appeared. As for the reincarnation avatar, he had already disappeared. Longao, where are the 8 of them? Madman Yi asked because he did not want to accept the truth. There was only one possibility for the 8 of them to disappear, and that was that they had been killed by Longao. Although it was a little unbelievable, the truth was in front of him. Even if Madman Yi did not want to believe it, the truth was the truth. Longao sneered and threw the 8 corpses away. Looking at the 8 corpses on the ground, Madman Yi's face became gloomier. As the number 1 genius of the Divine Island, he had successfully broken through to the Emperor God realm before the age of 30. He was only 1 step away from the Nirvana realm. Such strength and talent was enough to show disdain for the entire external endless sea. However, at this moment, Madman Yi didn't have the slightest bit of confidence. Not only did Longao kill Yi Hua and Yi Wen in a single move, he even killed 8 people in a few short minutes. With such strength, even if it was him, he probably wouldn't be able to do it in such a short period of time. Longao, who are you? Madman Yi was not a fool. He knew very well that if Longao had not been prepared, how could he have fought with his side as soon as he entered the astral purgatory and killed 10 people in a row? If he was an ordinary person, would he dare to do so? The Divine Island was the absolute overlord of the external endless sea. Not to mention the other islands, even the people from the 3 major islands did not dare to casually provoke the Divine Island. Since that was the case, who was Longao? Who I am has nothing to do with you. Madman Yi, 10 of the 11 people from the Divine Island have already died. You are the only one left. Do you think you can defeat us? If other reverend gods had said this to him, Madman Yi would have snorted disdainfully. Reverend gods were like ants in the eyes of emperor gods, especially in the eyes of Madman Yi. Only Longao, a valiant existence who could kill 10 emperor gods in a row, could not be evaluated by the realm of Longao's strength. Madman Yi did not know why, but he had an intuition that the young man in front of him was much stronger than him. His heart was unwilling to believe it. Longao, do you really think you can kill me? What do you think? The calmer his opponent appeared, the more uncertain Madman Yi was. After this battle, if he lost, Madman Yi was very clear that he would die without a doubt. In this battle, his prediction was not even 50% correct. Madman Yi, are you afraid? Longao sneered incessantly. His face was full of disdain and contempt. He was a majestic divine emperor martial artist and also the #1 genius of the divine island. However, such a super character was now endlessly afraid and didn't dare to make a move. If this matter were to spread out, it was unknown whether he would be ridiculed by everyone in the entire external sea. Chapter 1542. Me. Scared. Me. Scared. Ha ha ha, ha ha ha. All of a sudden, Lunatic Yi laughed out loud. His laughter was filled with confidence. Longao, the most important thing is to know your place. Once you are arrogant, you won't even know how you died. Before Longao could react, Lunatic Yi's aura started to rise crazily. In just a few seconds, Lunatic Yi's aura had transformed into the aura of heaven and earth. Nirvana realm. Sensing Lunatic Yi's aura, Longao's face was filled with shock. In just an instant, Longao already knew what had happened. If there were no accidents, Madman Yi himself was a Nirvana realm martial artist. However, due to the fact that he had to enter the purgatory of stars, he had no choice but to forcefully suppress his own realm. Ordinary people couldn't do such a thing. Longao didn't know that Lunatic Yi's actions were exactly the same as when Long Tian and Tong Zun entered the primordial battlefield. Star Purgatory, Nirvana realm martial artists couldn't enter the Gate of Stars. If they tried to force their way in, they would be killed by the Gate of Stars without any chance of survival. But once a Nirvana realm martial artist entered the Star Purgatory, they should be fine as long as they were careful. Longao didn't expect that Lunatic Yi wasn't a God Emperor martial artist, but a true Nirvana realm martial artist. Longao, do you still have the confidence to defeat me? Actually, he had completely transformed. The 5 Nirvana realms, from lowest to highest, were Heaven and Earth realm, Heaven and Man unity, Heaven and Earth realm, Nirvana realm, and Rebirth. When Lunatic Yi released the aura of Heaven and Earth, he didn't have a Heaven and Earth realm. This meant that Lunatic Yi's cultivation base had only broken through to Heaven and Man unity. Lin Fan was fearful. If he was a God Emperor martial artist, Longao wouldn't be worried at all. Because with his current strength, he could easily deal with a God Emperor martial artist without using the strength of his reincarnation avatar. But even if he was a Nirvana realm martial artist, Longao didn't have the slightest bit of confidence. Seeing that Longao didn't speak, Lunatic Yi laughed. Longao, die. Nonsense. Longao was not prepared to meet force with Madman Yi, so he turned around and left. With the help of spatial teleportation, Longao's figure quickly disappeared. Even Madman Yi didn't expect this. Madman Yi's cultivation base had already recovered. He originally thought that he would definitely be able to kill the other party. However, the other party's speed was too fast. The astral purgatory was vast and boundless. Trying to find traces of a person in the boundless purgatory of stars was simply like trying to find a needle in the ocean. Unless Longao showed himself. But was it possible? Looking coldly at the direction Longao disappeared in, Lunatic Yi did not chase after him. Now, the 10 people of the Divine Island had all fallen, and he was the only one left. All of their hopes had fallen on him. The most important purpose of entering the astral purgatory this time was to find the inheritance of the pinnacle of martial Dao. If he delayed the search for the inheritance of the pinnacle of martial Dao because of Longao, then the gains would not make up for the losses. As for the life and death of the 10 people, Lunatic Yi didn't care at all. Because this time, the Divine Island had spent a lot of effort to forcefully suppress his cultivation base to the Divine Emperor realm in order to ensure that nothing would go wrong. If he could find the inheritance of the pinnacle of martial Dao, he wouldn't hesitate to sacrifice 10 people. Because of this, Lunatic Yi didn't continue to chase after Longao, but went towards the center of the astral purgatory. Lunatic Yi had just disappeared, but Longao quietly appeared with a dignified look. Lunatic Yi had forcefully suppressed his strength to enter the astral purgatory. It was almost impossible for him to kill a Nirvana realm martial artist. Strength. What he needed the most now was still strength. Longao knew that if his cultivation base could break through and comprehend the heaven and earth, then Lunatic Yi wouldn't leave. However, Longao didn't continue to dwell on it. Instead, he also went towards the center of the astral purgatory. In order to ensure that nothing would go wrong in the astral purgatory this time, Lunatic Yi didn't just hurry on his way, he also killed the people of the 3 major islands. In front of a Nirvana realm martial artist, none of the 18 divine emperors of the 3 major islands could survive. All of them were killed by Lunatic Yi. Including Longao, there were more than 30 people from the 4 major islands who entered the astral purgatory. However, in less than 3 days, there were only 2 people left. One was Lunatic Yi, and the other was Longao. In the center of the astral purgatory, there was a medium-sized island surrounded by the sea. The environment was extremely beautiful. Longao, long time no see. How have you been? When the 2 of them met outside the island, they weren't surprised at all. Because the 2 of them entered the astral purgatory this time to look for the Martial Dao Peak inheritance. The exact location of the Martial Dao Peak inheritance was in the center of the astral purgatory, which was the nameless island in front of them. It had been 5 days since the 2 of them separated and met here again. In other words, there were less than 25 days left before the 1 month in the astral purgatory. Ha ha ha, Longao, you don't have to be afraid. At this time, I won't do anything to you. Wait until I obtain the Martial Dao Peak inheritance. At that time, I will slowly torture you. At that time, you will know what is worse than death. As soon as he finished speaking, Lunatic Yi didn't continue to hesitate. He flew into the sky and instantly disappeared into the island. Longao shrugged helplessly. Although his strength wasn't as strong as Lunatic Yi, he wasn't afraid at all. He was only 1 step away from the Martial Dao Peak inheritance. As long as he could find the Heart of Stars, he would be able to obtain the Martial Dao Peak inheritance. It seemed that Lunatic Yi still didn't know about the Heart of Stars. In other words, no matter how hard Lunatic Yi tried, he wouldn't be able to obtain the Martial Dao Peak inheritance. Because of this, Longao wasn't worried at all. In the remaining 25 days, he just needed to slowly search for the Martial Dao Peak inheritance. Longao also didn't hesitate and quickly headed towards the island in front of him. On the island, there were ancient towering trees all around, covering the sky and the sun. After entering the island, Longao became incomparably dignified. Although Tian Chen didn't say it, according to Xiling, the center of the astral purgatory was the most dangerous place in the entire astral purgatory. If he wasn't careful, he would be doomed eternally. As expected. As soon as he stepped onto the island, Longao didn't even have time to observe the situation around him. A red tide had already appeared around him. Longao, let's work together first. When we find the Martial Dao Peak inheritance, we'll rely on our own abilities. What do you think? They were surrounded by countless blood-red spiders. These blood-red spiders didn't have the slightest cultivation level and were just like ordinary spiritual beasts. However, both Longao and Lunatic Yi could clearly sense the powerful aura released from these blood-red spiders. The surrounding blood-colored spiders were densely packed. With one glance, even Longao felt his scalp go numb. Without the slightest hesitation, Longao nodded and agreed. Because the situation was very critical, it was very difficult for him to deal with the surrounding blood spiders by himself. The 2 of them merged together as fast as they could and began to counterattack the blood spiders from the left and right. Longao, there are too many blood-red spiders. If this goes on, we'll definitely die. What do you want? Longao's face was also very gloomy because there were too many blood-red spiders around them. Looking at the situation, the number of blood-red spiders was still increasing. Who knew how many blood-red spiders there were? Even if there weren't any extra blood-red spiders, just this number alone was enough to take their lives. Longao, let's use our strongest move. I've already sensed that the blood-red spiders are the weakest on the left side. Only then can we leave safely. No problem. Under such circumstances, the 2 of them had already decided to put aside their grudges. The most important thing was to leave this place first. Longao didn't have the slightest doubt because his death wouldn't benefit Lunatic Yi at all. Only by joining forces could they forcefully break open a path and leave. As a Nirvana realm martial artist, Lunatic Yi's strongest move was definitely the Chi of Heaven and Earth. After all, the Chi of Heaven and Earth condensed by Longao couldn't be compared to his. The power wasn't on the same level. Under such circumstances, Lunatic Yi didn't hold back. Not only Lunatic Yi, but even Longao also didn't hold back. However, among the many martial skills, Longao only chose Sorrow of Heaven and Earth. The terrifying Chi vortex, in addition to the martial skill released by Lunatic Yi and the Chi of Heaven and Earth, this kind of power was enough to sweep away 1,000 soldiers. It directly started to move towards the left side. The blood-red spiders didn't seem to be afraid of death. They were like moths to a flame. One after another, they continuously attacked the two of them. The Chi vortex was like a bulldozer. Wherever it passed, all the blood-red spiders were turned into ashes. Seeing this situation, the two of them were delighted at the same time. They didn't dare to have the slightest hesitation. The two of them quickly moved towards the left side at their fastest speed. However, the two of them still underestimated the siege of the blood-red spiders. Lunatic Yi originally thought that the left side was the place where the number of spiders was the weakest. He never thought that the place where they thought the number of spiders was the weakest would be attacked by an even more terrifying divine beast. The blood-red mantises were also densely packed. The two of them cursed at the same time. They looked at each other and saw a trace of shock in each other's eyes. The two of them never thought that after the blood-red spiders, there would be an endless number of blood-red mantises. If this continued, when would they reach the end? Even though they were extremely depressed, the two of them still continued to use various big moves to force the surrounding blood-red mantises to stay outside. They didn't let a single one of them get close to them. Otherwise, if they were careless, they would be consigned to eternal damnation. Lunatic Yi, continue to sense. Chapter 1543. Without needing Longao to say anything, Lunatic Yi had already begun to sense. The situation was critical. It could be said to be hanging by a thread. Longao, we're in big trouble. Hearing Lunatic Yi's words, Longao's heart skipped a beat. He asked, what's going on? I've already sensed it. There's no weakness in the surrounding blood-colored mantises. If that was the case, things were really troublesome. Longao had already tried. He didn't know if the island had changed the spatial fluctuations, but he couldn't enter the dragon seal space at all. Since they couldn't sense any weakness, the two could only fight with all their might. Because both of them knew very well that if they were careless, they would be killed by the blood-colored mantises. The two of them found a problem. The blood-colored spiders and blood-colored mantises didn't invade each other. In other words, when the two of them entered the blood-colored mantises camp, none of the blood-colored spiders stepped in. There was a tiger roar. At this moment, a black figure suddenly appeared. Big brother, I'm here to help you. After devouring the power, Long Ming's cultivation had increased greatly. Now, he had officially broken through the peak God-Emperor realm. He was only one step away from the Nirvana realm. Long Ming belonged to the dark attribute Divine Beast. As soon as he appeared, he swept away thousands of troops. But before Longao could react, a terrifying power suddenly descended from the surroundings, directly suppressing and even imprisoning Long Ming. Forbidden power. Feeling this imprisoning power, whether it was Longao or Lunatic Yi, both of them exclaimed at the same time. Forbidden power, a power unique to peak martial Dao powerhouses. Longao and Lunatic Yi never thought that the forbidden power would suddenly descend at this time. Longao was very clear about the power of the forbidden power. Not to mention a God-Emperor, even a Nirvana rebirth powerhouse couldn't resist the killing power of the forbidden power. Although he didn't know what had happened, Longao could still be sure that because of Long Ming's sudden appearance, it caused the forbidden power to imprison. He didn't dare to be the slightest bit careless. Longao and Long Ming's relationship was very strange. If an ordinary divine beast was imprisoned by the forbidden power, they would definitely die. Except for Longao. With a thought, Long Ming's figure suddenly disappeared. Hey! Between heaven and earth, a surprised voice suddenly sounded, and then disappeared. Longao and Madman Yi were both shocked. The two looked at each other and saw a trace of shock in each other's eyes. Neither of them knew who the person who had just let out a cry of surprise was. Could it be the expert at the peak of martial arts who had sent down the taboo power? Madman Yi might not know, but it was impossible for Longao not to know. The owner of the astral purgatory was Tian Chen. Could it be that Tian Chen was the one who exclaimed just now? Not likely. Before the two of them could continue to think, the crimson mantises around them began to attack. Wave after wave, the waves were endless and dense. At a glance, it was a sea of crimson red, like a sea of blood. As the saying went, 2 fists are no match for 4 hands. Even if the two of them were strong, it was impossible for them to deal with it continuously. The crimson mantises were endless, but their strength was limited. They could only hold on for a few hours, but could they hold on forever? If this situation continued, the two of them would definitely die. Self-created martial arts technique, Heaven and Earth Sorrow. Longao kept activating Heaven and Earth Sorrow, and his whole body was sucked into the vortex of airflow. At this time, if Longao chose to give up on Madman Yi, then if there were no accidents, Madman Yi's chances of survival would be less than 0. However, Longao would not make trouble for himself. If things went smoothly, he would definitely not save him. However, there were crimson mantises all around, and crimson spiders in the distance were eyeing covetously. One more person meant one more strength. Longao, I have to admit that below the Nirvana realm, you are the strongest. Although he was unwilling to admit it, Madman Yi could still feel Longao's strength. If it were not for the absolute gap between their realms, Madman Yi would even think that even he seemed to be no match for Longao. Madman Yi, the crimson mantises around, including the crimson spiders, are not real existences. Longao did not have the slightest bit of nonsense. He really couldn't figure out that the situation was so critical, and Madman Yi could still say such nonsense. If it weren't for the threat of the crimson mantises and the crimson spiders, he believed that by now, they would have already fought. At that time, it would be either you die or I die, so what's the point of saying more nonsense? The most important thing now was to leave here. Not real existences? What do you mean? He seemed to be a little confused because Madman Yi had already sensed that the crimson mantises around were all powerful existences at the level of divine beasts. As for what realm they were at, even he seemed to be unable to sense it. Whether it is the crimson spiders or the crimson mantises, there is no indication of their realm. If my guess is correct, the crimson mantises and the crimson spiders around are all formed by some kind of power, and are not real divine beasts. He was taken aback. However, Madman Yi did not have the slightest doubt because he knew very well that Longao had no need to fool him. If this was the case, the situation seemed to be more troublesome. They were not real divine beasts, but formed by some kind of power. If he had not seen it with his own eyes, he would not have believed it even if he was beaten to death. This kind of remarkable ability could only be achieved by experts at the pinnacle of martial arts. He believed that even Nirvana realm experts could not do it. Then what should we do now? If they are real divine beasts, we won't be able to escape this time. If they are formed by power, I have a way, but you and I have to make a blood oath. Before we see the inheritance of the pinnacle of martial arts, neither of us is allowed to attack or assassinate each other. If we violate the blood oath, we will never be able to leave the purgatory of stars. How about it? If there was no such thing, he believed that Madman Yi would definitely not agree. However, the situation now was different. If he did not agree, only death would await. It was precisely because of this that Madman Yi did not even think about it. He did not even hesitate in the slightest as he nodded and agreed, okay. Immediately after, Longao and Madman Yi both made a blood oath at the same time. Only at this moment did the two of them let out a sigh of relief. After making the blood oath, the two of them did not have to worry about being attacked or even assassinated at all times. Although it was under such circumstances, the two of them were very afraid. No matter what, The two of them were like fire and water. If they did not make a blood oath, once they seized the opportunity, no matter if it was Longao or Madman Yi, they would not hesitate to attack. The path of searching for the inheritance of the pinnacle of martial arts was full of danger. If they schemed against each other, only death would await them. It was better to temporarily cooperate and compete for the inheritance of the pinnacle of martial arts based on their own abilities. Chapter 1544. Longao, can you tell me what we should do now? Madman Yi was actually very unhappy in his heart. As a Nirvana realm martial artist and the #1 genius of the mythical island, he was usually high and mighty. When had he ever acted like this? Compromising with the enemy was simply a disgrace. An enormous disgrace. Even if he was extremely helpless and angry, even if he was unhappy, Madman Yi was very clear that he had no other choice in this situation. No matter what, he had to protect his own life first. Secondly, he had to try his best to find the inheritance of the peak of martial Dao while preserving his life. According to my guess, these blood-colored spiders and blood-colored mantises are formed by the blood-colored energy, and the power of lightning is their nemesis. So what? Madman Yi was extremely depressed. Madman Yi was very helpless. Even if that was the case, where could he find the power of lightning at this time? Whether it was him or Longao, neither of them cultivated lightning. It was equivalent to not saying anything. Regarding what Madman Yi was thinking in his heart, how could Longao not know? He sneered in his heart. Although we don't have the power of lightning, I have another method that requires your help. Speak. After swearing a blood oath, Longao wasn't worried that Madman Yi would sneak attack him or even assassinate him. Unless Madman Yi didn't want to leave the astral purgatory. I need your help, said Yi Futian. No problem. Longao prepared to use the 5 elements devouring art. Ever since he obtained the 2 primal chaos stone tablets, Longao had comprehended 2 sets of martial skills from them. One was the 5 elements heaven devouring art, and the other was the firmament devouring art. Longao had already calculated that whether it was the firmament devouring art or the 5 elements heaven devouring art, they could deal with the surrounding blood-colored mantises and spiders. However, Longao still prepared to use the 5 elements heaven devouring art and not the firmament devouring art. The reason was simple. Longao was very clear that once he used the firmament devouring art, who knew how much power he would need to devour. With his strength, if he devoured too much, there would only be one result. He would be devoured by the power and even explode. The 5 elements heaven devouring art was different. The biggest weakness of using the 5 elements heaven devouring technique was that Longao's mastery of the 5 elements heaven devouring technique was not very deep. It was because of this that he needed Madman Yi's help. The next moment. In order to leave this place as soon as possible, Madman Yi went all out this time. The 5 elements heaven swallowing art consisted of the power of the 5 elements: metal, wood, water, fire, and earth. Longao had already calculated that if he combined the power of the 5 elements, he would definitely be able to deal with the surrounding blood-red spiders and blood-red mantises. The power of 5 colors. What kind of martial skill is this? Madman Yi could clearly sense that the martial skill Longao was using was extremely powerful. Even he was afraid of it. The vortex had already disappeared. Just as Longao had guessed, although the 5 elements heaven-devouring incantation had not been cultivated to the extreme, as a powerful martial technique within the primal chaos stone tablet, its might could be imagined. The power of the 5 elements was the most powerful force in the world. The devouring power of the firmament devouring incantation and the power of the 5 elements heaven-devouring incantation were equally powerful. All the surrounding blood-red mantises seemed to be afraid of the power of the 5 elements. In less than a few minutes, the power of the 5 elements had forcibly opened a path in front of them. Seeing this situation, Madman Yi was delighted. The two of them did not hesitate and immediately shot forward because the blood-red mantises behind them were still crazily rushing forward like moths to a flame. The two of them were very fast. In a short while, they had already completely escaped the encirclement of the blood-red mantises. Whether it was the blood-red mantises or the blood-red spiders, They would not spread and would only move in their own camp. Seeing that the blood-red mantises behind them did not chase after them, both Longao and Madman Yi let out a long sigh of relief. Longao, thank you for this time. However, the grudge between you and me will not be written off. Longao had an indifferent expression. In Longao's opinion, even if Madman Yi was a Nirvana realm martial artist, so what? Even if they left the star purgatory, with his spatial teleportation and dragon seal space, it would be difficult for the deity island to catch him. Yimo smiled. Longao, I clearly distinguish between kindness and hatred. I will remember this matter in my heart. I will not deal with you in the star purgatory. As for leaving the star purgatory, your life and death will depend on your luck. When the time comes, I will report this matter to the deity island. If the deity island wants to deal with you, I will not be merciful. Longao appreciated Madman Yi's attitude. Madman Yi, we will settle our grudge after leaving the star purgatory. However, if we want to find the peak martial Dao inheritance now, I am afraid it will be very dangerous. You and I will temporarily join hands. When we find the peak martial Dao inheritance, we will compete with our own ability. No problem. In just a moment, the two of them reached an agreement. The two of them stopped for a while. About 10 minutes later, they immediately got up and continued to walk forward. The entire island did not look big. However, when the two of them stepped on the island, they had a feeling that this so-called island was probably endless. Moreover, they did not know what dangers lay ahead. They could only take one step at a time. Carefully, they raised their spirits. Kai kai, kai kai, kai kai kai, kai 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 kai. At this moment, a strange sound suddenly came from the southeast. It was very ear-piercing and even had a kind of ability to disturb one's mind. What was it? Could it be the heaven-devouring python? What is it? Madman Yi fiercely swallowed his saliva and said with a sigh, Longao, you have a plan. In our external sea, there is a legend that the heaven-devouring python's strength is comparable to a divine dragon. However, many years ago, the heaven-devouring python was already extinct. It should not be the heaven-devouring python. Before Madman Yi could finish his words, the sizzling sound was getting closer and closer. In the next moment, an incomparably huge python suddenly appeared. The entire python was dozens of meters long and as thick as 20 people. It looked like 5 incomparably huge hills that were constantly moving. Damn, it is indeed the heaven-devouring python. The Nirvana divine beast, the heaven-devouring python. Although it was only a heaven-devouring python that had comprehended the heaven and earth, Longao was very clear in his heart that even Madman Yi beside him was not a match for the heaven-devouring python. Longao and Madman Yi were extremely depressed. An originally extinct divine beast had actually appeared here. Moreover, it was a Nirvana realm heaven-devouring python. It was probably not an easy task for the two of them to dodge the attack of the heaven-devouring python. What should they do? Chapter 1545. The heaven-devouring python was a Nirvana divine beast that had comprehended heaven and earth. Madman Yi, I'll be counting on you for this battle. Longao knew that with his strength, it was impossible to defeat the heaven-devouring python. He nodded. Madman Yi also knew that the situation was critical. Without any hesitation, he took a big stride forward and rushed out. Before he arrived, the terrifying aura of heaven and earth had already suppressed him. In the 5 Nirvana realms, only by breaking through the unity of heaven and man could one condense the heaven and earth domain. In other words, whether it was Madman Yi or the heaven-devouring python, both of them had comprehended heaven and earth Nirvana realms. At the same time, they released the aura of heaven and earth and collided together. As expected, Madman Yi's strength was still inferior to the heaven-devouring python. Roar! A furious roar resounded. The heaven-devouring python was like a mad lion. It began to attack Madman Yi in a frenzy. Wave after wave of attacks were like monstrous waves that surged into the sky. The man and the python had already begun a fierce battle. Seeing this situation, as the battle continued to escalate, the one who would lose would definitely be Madman Yi. Longao didn't stand still and watch the show. With a big stride, Longao's body also rushed out. Innate ability, Dragon Roar. When the dragon roar sounded, the surrounding space also changed. Although Madman Yi didn't know how Longao did it, he wouldn't easily choose to give up this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. The two of them joined forces, one on the left and one on the right. The heaven-devouring python fiercely swung towards Longao. The strength of the giant tail could be imagined. Once hit, no matter how strong Longao's defense was, he wouldn't be able to withstand it. "I'll tear you into pieces." It was normal for a Nirvana divine beast to speak human language. One had to admit that the heaven-devouring python's strength was too strong. Even if the two of them joined forces, they couldn't defeat the heaven-devouring python. Not only that, as the battle continued to escalate, the two of them gradually discovered that the heaven-devouring python's physical defense was very strong. It was too difficult to break the heaven-devouring python's physical defense. "Longao, if this continues, we will suffer a great loss." Longao nodded. How could he not know what Madman Yi meant? However, in the face of such a powerful Nirvana divine beast, it was already very good that he could protect himself, let alone kill the heaven-devouring python. What should he do? No matter if it was Longao or Madman Yi, they were all extremely solemn. The sky-devouring python's attack speed was getting faster and faster. Its huge tail kept swinging back and forth. Neither Longao nor Madman Yi could get close to it. "Big brother, let me help you." "Absolutely not." Hearing Long Qiong's words, Longao couldn't wait to refuse. Long Qiong had already made his move just now, but he was directly imprisoned by the forbidden power. Longao was almost certain that as long as Long Qiong appeared, there was no need for him to make a move. He believed that he would be imprisoned by the forbidden power again. Long Qiong couldn't make a move, so Long Qiong couldn't appear either. Long Qiong had already told Longao the general situation regarding the heaven-devouring python. After hearing that, Longao also sighed endlessly. Once the heaven-devouring python transformed into a heaven-devouring divine dragon, even the 9 firmaments divine dragon of the dragon tribe wouldn't be a match for the heaven-devouring divine dragon unless the primordial divine dragon made a move personally. Longao never thought that the heaven-devouring python's origin would be so powerful. Fortunately, the heaven-devouring python hadn't transformed into a heaven-devouring divine dragon yet. Otherwise, he and Madman Yi wouldn't even have a chance to fight back. Even so, the two of them didn't have a high chance of winning. As the battle continued to escalate and become more and more dangerous, the two of them gradually couldn't hold on any longer. They kept retreating while the heaven-devouring python chased after them. Fight. Of course, Longao didn't want to die. If this continued, there would only be one outcome. Whether it was him or Madman Yi, they would both be destroyed by the heaven-devouring python. Since that was the case, he might as well give it a try. Time Shorekill technique. With the help of the dragon's roar, the heaven-devouring python's speed was locked down forcefully. Even though Madman Yi didn't know what Longao was going to do, he still increased the intensity of his attacks. Even though Madman Yi's strength wasn't a match for the heaven-devouring python, he was still a Nirvana state martial artist after all. His strength was there for all to see. Under the combination of the two of them, coupled with the increasing intensity of Madman Yi's attacks, the heaven-devouring python had no choice but to attack Madman Yi with all his might. Gradually, he neglected Longao. With that, Longao was elated. Seemed like his chance had arrived. Reincarnation Heavenly Eye opened. Suddenly, 2 black beams of light shot out from Longao's eyes, piercing right into the mind of the heaven-devouring python. Roar! A blood-curdling scream rang out. The heaven-devouring python had never imagined that a puny god-emperor could actually injure his soul. If his soul had evolved into a primordial spirit, even Longao wouldn't be able to injure the heaven-devouring python's soul even if he used the reincarnation Heavenly Eye. However, the heaven-devouring python had always been at the heaven and earth realm, and hadn't broken through to the Nirvana fate realm. But now that he thought about it, if the heaven-devouring python's cultivation base had already reached the Nirvana fate realm, Longao and Madman Yi wouldn't have been able to hold on for so long. Madman Yi, Hurry up and attack. We only have one chance. One had to admit that the reincarnation heavenly eye was extremely powerful. After all, the difference in cultivation base between Longao and the heaven-devouring python was huge. If it weren't for Madman Yi attracting all of the heaven-devouring python's soul, Longao wouldn't have been able to injure the heaven-devouring python's soul. Not only that, the slightest carelessness would have resulted in a backlash from the heaven-devouring python. At that time, the consequences would have been unimaginable. No matter what, Longao's reincarnation heavenly eye had succeeded in attacking the heaven-devouring python. Madman Yi and Longao didn't give up on this opportunity. They attacked with all their might, not giving the heaven-devouring python any chance to recover. Longao, use your strongest move. We only have one chance. Madman Yi was also shocked when he saw the martial skill that Longao had just used. As he continued to interact with Longao, he also realized that Longao's strength wasn't as simple as it seemed. Although he was only at the hierarch realm, his true strength was above that of a peak god emperor. He could even fight against a martial artist who had comprehended the heaven and earth realm. If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, he would have found it hard to believe. However, under such circumstances, Madman Yi couldn't care about anything else. After leaving the star purgatory, he must kill Longao and eliminate the root of the problem. Madman Yi wouldn't cause any trouble for himself and the deity island. After all, Longao was too unpredictable. Who knew if he would grow up to deal with the deity island and himself in the future? Madman Yi and Longao attacked with all their might, each using their strongest move. Longao chose the destruction seal among the many killer moves. The two joined forces and attacked the heaven-devouring python with all their might. The heaven-devouring python's furious roar resounded through the heaven and earth. Chapter 1546. Even so. Because the heaven-swallowing python's physical defense was too strong, even if it was attacked by the two, its defense couldn't be broken. Seeing this situation, the two of them were shocked. Such a physical defense was a little too strong, wasn't it? Longao and Madman Yi looked at each other and saw a trace of shock in each other's eyes. Continue to attack, don't give the heaven-swallowing python the slightest chance to breathe. Nodding. How could Longao not know what Madman Yi said? Even if the heaven-swallowing python's physical defense was strong, but after receiving their continuous attacks, he believed that it was seriously injured. Continuing to attack at this time was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. The two's speed soared to the extreme, one punch after another, the fist shadows were endless. The heaven-swallowing python looked like it was dying. As long as the two continued to attack, the heaven-swallowing python would only have a dead end. Emperor Dragon 9 Fatal Blow. Emperor Dragon Raging Waves, Emperor Dragon Buries the Sky, Emperor Dragon Strangulation, Emperor Dragon Overbearing, Emperor Dragon Collapses, Emperor Dragon Explodes, Emperor Dragon Heart Devours, Emperor Dragon Breaks the Firmament. After 3 rounds, the heaven-swallowing python was directly beaten to the ground. It breathed in less and breathed out less. Looking at the dying heaven-swallowing python, the two finally breathed a sigh of relief. With a surprised face, Madman Yi said with a smile, "Longao, I hope you can help me." "What do you mean?" "The heaven-swallowing python is on the verge of death. As long as I make a move now, the probability of subduing the heaven-swallowing python is very high. So that's it." Longao sneered in his heart. Although he was temporarily cooperating with Madman Yi, it didn't mean that they were friends. Madman Yi was a Nirvana realm martial artist. If he subdued the heaven-swallowing python, who could be his opponent in the world? Longao knew that the enmity between him and the mythical island had reached the point where it was either you die or I die. Even if he didn't find trouble with the mythical island, he believed that the mythical island wouldn't let it go. In this case, helping Madman Yi subduing the heaven-swallowing python, wouldn't it be looking for trouble? Madman Yi, you and I are not friends, but enemies. Temporarily cooperating is just to deal with the current danger. There was no surprise. Nor was there any trace of anger. If Longao agreed without hesitation, Madman Yi would find it strange. "Longao, what is the meaning of this?" You and I will rely on our own abilities. No matter who subdues the heaven-devouring python, we are not allowed to attack each other. How about that? If it was outside, would Madman Yi agree? However, things had already come to this. Even if Madman Yi was very unhappy in his heart, he could only agree. Neither of them made a move immediately. He stared at the dying heaven-devouring python in front of him quietly. Both of them were very clear that this attack had to hit the target. Otherwise, if they missed the opportunity, the other person would take advantage of it for nothing. The next moment, Longao and Madman Yi's bodies moved at the same time. If they had the help of spatial teleportation, even if Madman Yi's level was higher than Longao's, his speed would still be far inferior. But even so, Longao's speed was about the same as Madman Yi's. The two of them arrived in front of the heaven-devouring python at the same time. If they wanted to subdue the heaven-devouring python, the first thing they had to do was to erode the heaven-devouring python's divine soul and make the heaven-devouring python submit itself. The only thing the two of them were worried about was that the heaven-devouring python was unwilling to submit. Once it chose to self-destruct its body or even its divine soul, no matter who it was, they would be instantly destroyed. The consequences would be unimaginable. The two of them did not attack each other. They had not found the inheritance of the peak of martial arts and had already encountered so many dangers. Who knew if there would be other dangers in the future? With one more person, they would have more power. The two of them seemed to have a tacit understanding. The two of them began to attack the heaven-devouring python's divine soul. Whoever dealt with the divine soul first would be able to subdue the heaven-devouring python. You want to subdue me with just the two of you? Even if I die, I will not fulfill your wish. Indefinite divine ring. At this time, Madman Yi finally used the supreme divine weapon of the island, the indefinite divine ring. Before Longao could react, Madman Yi used the indefinite divine ring to cover the divine soul. No matter how the heaven-devouring python roared in anger, Madman Yi was pleasantly surprised and did not hesitate at all. Letting out a sigh. Retreating dozens of steps, Longao helplessly shrugged his shoulders. Although he was somewhat unwilling in his heart, the matter had already happened and there was no other way to salvage it. Longao never imagined that Madman Yi would have such a powerful divine weapon in his hands. Before he could react, Madman Yi had already used the divine weapon to subdue the heaven-devouring python's divine soul. If there were no accidents, Madman Yi would definitely be able to subdue the heaven-devouring python. No matter how hard he tried, there would only be one final result, and that was to no avail. If that was the case, why should he waste his time? As expected. If it was the heaven-devouring python at its peak, even if Madman Yi used the indefinite divine ring, it would still be impossible to subdue the heaven-devouring python. However, the current situation was completely different. The heaven-devouring python's strength was not even 1/10 of its peak, so how could it resist the indefinite divine ring? In just a few minutes, Madman Yi had already successfully subdued the heaven-devouring python. His face could not conceal his pleasant surprise as he said with a smile, "Many thanks to you this time. Let's hurry up. At this rate, it will be very difficult for us to find the martial Dao peak inheritance within a month." A total of 7 days had passed since they entered the purgatory of stars. There were less than 23 days left. Time flew by. If they couldn't find an inheritance that was at the pinnacle of the martial Dao in the remaining time, they would be directly teleported out of the purgatory of stars. If that was the case, wouldn't their trip to the purgatory of stars this time be in vain? Longao was also very clear that even if he possessed the nameless martial skill, it would not be an easy task to obtain the Heart of Stars. Tian Chen had set up this trap. It would be strange if it was so easy to obtain the peak martial arts inheritance. Alright, let's continue our journey. After successfully subduing the heaven-devouring python, Madman Yi had already thought it through. Even if he was unlucky and could not obtain the martial Dao peak inheritance, this trip would not be in vain. After all, he had subdued the heaven-devouring python and his strength had instantly skyrocketed. In terms of comprehending the heaven and earth, no one could be his opponent. The two of them were still very careful. They were fully alert as they walked step by step, advancing step by step. After walking for a short distance, they had already encountered a blood-red spider, a blood-red praying mantis, and a heaven-devouring python. The two of them were very fearful because they did not know what dangers they would encounter next. As the two of them walked slowly, they arrived in front of a stone tablet in about 10 minutes. The huge black stone tablet was like a huge mirror. Chapter 1547. There's no way out. There was only a stone stele in front of the two of them. The surrounding roads were all sealed. They couldn't move forward, nor could they retreat. The two of them looked at the stone stele in front of them. They knew very well that things weren't that simple. There was definitely something fishy. There are words. Following Madman Yi's finger, Longao saw 3 words suddenly appear on the left side of the stone stele. Heart Devil Stele. Could the stone stele in front of them be the so-called Heart Devil Stele? Whether it was Longao or Madman Yi, they didn't know what the so-called Heart Devil Stele was. But in the next moment, the two of them instantly stopped moving as if they had entered a meditative state. Their divine souls entered the black space at the same time. The black air around them surged. Longao, Long Yi and his wife, second uncle, third uncle, fourth uncle, big brother, second brother, third brother, Yu Yin, Aoshue, Bai Ling, and even Xiling and Long Fu appeared one by one. They were somewhat shocked. Longao couldn't figure out why his family, his lover, would suddenly appear here. Heart Devil Stele, Heart Devil Stele, could this be the so-called Heart Devil Stele? Looking at the people in front of him, Longao was unusually calm. Because he had already guessed what the so-called Heart Devil Stele was. As expected. Before Longao could do anything, the people in front of him suddenly began to kill each other. Kill each other. Longao killed Yu Yin, Aoshue killed Long Yi, second uncle killed third uncle, and fourth uncle killed Bai Ling. It was a mess. Although he knew that everything in front of him was fake, Longao still couldn't help but look at the situation. This kind of thing, not to mention Longao, no matter who it was, they wouldn't be able to bear it. Ah! With a painful roar, Longao's body exploded with a cold murderous aura. Like a whirlwind, it swept over fiercely. In the next moment, everyone disappeared. Somewhat dumbfounded, Longao's murderous aura disappeared and the people who had just disappeared appeared again. The situation was exactly the same. Everyone was still killing each other. You kill me, I kill you. It was just killing, but they couldn't kill each other. Longao continued to attack, and everyone continued to disappear. Just like that, the cycle repeated several times. Coldly looking at everything before him, Longao was almost certain that this was the so-called illusory realm. The biggest reason for this was because of the mental demon Stele. Brother Long, save me, save me. Aoer, save me, save me. Seventh brother, save me, save me. Seventh brother, save me, save me. Master, save me, save me. At this moment, everyone shouted at the same time. Every one of them was dripping with blood and looked terrible. His heart was bleeding, as if a knife had pierced his heart. It would be impossible for him to not be moved by this. Longao's speed soared to the extreme. At the beginning, Longao always knew that everything in front of him was fake. Once he fell for it, the consequences would be unimaginable. If he couldn't stop, he would definitely die. However, as Longao's state of mind began to change, Longao was gradually eroded by the mental demon, and the erosion was getting worse and worse. Pu. Spitting out a mouthful of blood, Longao's body began to sway. His face was extremely pale. Being eroded by the mental demon, Longao was seriously injured in just a few minutes. He was shocked. He immediately closed his eyes and his divine soul began to cover his entire body. Until now, Longao's body was still covered in cold sweat. If it wasn't for some mysterious force eroding him, he believed that he would have died. The mental demon Stele borrowed the power of the mental demon to erode one's mind. Such an attack was impossible to guard against. Longao's physical defense was extremely strong. Even if it was a peak god emperor, or even Madman Yi, they might not be able to break through Longao's physical defense in the shortest time. Only the mental demon was not afraid of physical defense. It could directly penetrate the body and erode the mind. In this case, even Longao would not be able to withstand it. Longao tried to communicate with the dragon seal, but helplessly found that the spatial fluctuations in this mysterious space were severely disrupted. Not to mention entering the dragon seal space, it was impossible to even communicate with Xiling and Long Fu. Without his physical body, how could his divine soul withstand the erosion and attack of the mental demon? If his physical body was here, Longao had full confidence that even if he was attacked and eroded by the mental demon, he wouldn't be so seriously injured in such a short time. Longao cursed in his heart. Even though he closed his eyes, there were still countless scenes in his mind. They were still his family and his lover killing each other. It was very cruel. If this continued, it would not be a solution. Longao was very clear that he had to deal with it as soon as possible. Because once the mental demon invaded his divine soul, even the divine mathematician would not be able to save him. Not only that. Once the mental demon invaded his divine soul, not only would he die, he would not even have the chance to enter the path of reincarnation. This was the horror of the mental demon. This was the horror of not having a physical body. Until now, Longao still couldn't figure out what was going on. Why would his physical body and divine soul be separated? He still didn't know where his physical body was. But the most important thing now was to resist the mental demon and crush it. Firmament devouring art. A huge black vortex appeared behind Longao and began to devour the mental demon's erosion around him. Longao was just trying it out. But when he used the firmament devouring art, he found that it was really useful. The images that appeared were being devoured by the firmament devouring art. Longao was temporarily freed. Looking at the images that were still appearing in front of him, his eyes started to turn cold again. The murderous aura on his body intensified. For words, a murderous aura. Although the firmament devouring art alone could devour the images in the distance were still multiplying. Longao was very clear that once he stopped using the firmament devouring art, he would undoubtedly be eroded by the mental demon again. If this continued, it would not be a solution. Innate ability, Dragon's Roar. At the same time as the dragon roar sounded, Longao continued to use his time shortkill technique. But even so, the erosion of the inner demons and the scenes of mutual slaughter still did not stop. In other words, whether it was the innate magical ability or the time shortkill technique, it was useless. Longao cursed again. He didn't stop because he had to buy time. The longer he delayed, the more disadvantageous it would be for him. Racing against time, Longao directly used the destruction seal. The result was the same. It was useless. Apart from the firmament devouring art, Longao used all kinds of shortkill arts and martial skills, but they were all useless. This result made Longao very depressed. What kind of place was this? Why was the mental demon so strong? Chapter 1548. It was a race against time. He didn't dare to waste any time. When Longao didn't know what to do, a black shadow suddenly shot out of his dantian. It was the Samsara disc, the most precious treasure of the Samsara clan. When Longao got the Samsara disc by accident, he tried countless methods but still couldn't open it. Why did the Samsara disc appear at this time? The Samsara disc came in front of Longao and began to spin rapidly. As it spun faster and faster, the Samsara disc suddenly turned into a black divine sword. I wanted to give you the Samsara sword after your cultivation reached the starry sky realm. Since you woke up in advance, I'll give it to you now. The Samsara sword. Of course, Longao knew who the person who spoke in his mind was. He was shocked. Because in here, he was unable to sense even Long Fu and Purple Spirit. Only the mysterious youth was able to speak in his mind, and that in itself was enough to show just how powerful the mysterious youth was. The Samsara sword was the Samsara disc. Longao knew the importance of the Samsara disc, but he couldn't care less under such circumstances. Longao was not a fool. If he wanted to use the Samsara sword, he must use the 9-cycle Samsara sword. All the Samsara power in his body flowed into the Samsara sword in his hand. All of a sudden, the Samsara sword was surrounded by black light, shining in all directions. It was very dazzling. Even Longao himself was shocked. However, he couldn't control the Samsara sword without other sword techniques. In this case, it would be difficult for the Samsara sword to break the mental demon Steely. Samsara sword technique? At this moment, a sword technique suddenly appeared in Longao's mind. It was the Samsara sword technique. It was difficult to use a sword technique without cultivation. However, the Samsara sword technique was different. It was as if it was made for Longao. In an instant, Longao held the Samsara sword in his hand and began to wave it. How could the mental demon Steely resist the attack of the Samsara sword? He glanced at Madman Yi, who was not far away, and attacked crazily as if he had gone mad. There was no doubt. Longao certainly knew what had happened. If he didn't know what dangers were ahead, it would be the best time to kill Madman Yi. Even if he didn't ask, he believed that Madman Yi couldn't leave here alive. If it weren't for the reincarnation sword, he probably wouldn't have been able to leave the Heart Devil Steely alive. It was not the time to kill Madman Yi. Thinking about it, Longao strode forward with the reincarnation sword in his hand. A few minutes later, the Heart Devil Steely was destroyed. The two of them were enveloped by the black light and left the mysterious space. In front of the sky-reaching Steely. Thank you. Let's talk about our grudges later. Let's work together and leave this place first. He nodded. Longao was very curious because the Heart Devil Steely's Heart Devil attack had already been broken by his Samsara sword. Under normal circumstances, the Heart Devil Steely should have already been broken, so why would it still block in front of him? Right at this moment. And a stone door suddenly appeared in front of the mental demon Steely. Looking at the stone door in front of them, the two of them were instantly overjoyed. It seemed that the two of them had successfully passed the test. Up until now, Madman Yi was still a bit nervous because if it wasn't for Longao just now, he believed that he would have already fallen. Longao, you saved my life. I will remember this kindness. If there is a chance, I will pay you back. After that, Madman Yi didn't hesitate. He walked to the stone door and disappeared in it. As time went by, Longao gradually found that Madman Yi was a good person. However, the enmity between him and the Divine Island was like fire and water. He killed 10 people of the Divine Island. Even if he was willing to give up, the Divine Island wouldn't. He shrugged helplessly. Longao did not hesitate in the slightest and entered the stone door. As soon as Longao disappeared, a figure suddenly appeared. Looking at the mental demon Steely in front of him, Tian Chen sneered and said to himself, a mutated 9 netherworld tiger. His life is not simple. It seems that I have a chance to be reborn. Ha ha ha, I didn't expect that I would hand over the inheritance. Ha ha ha, ha 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 ha, ha 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 ha. He looked up to the sky and laughed wildly. His laughter resounded between heaven and earth. Longao and Madman Yi couldn't see anymore. They entered the stone door. Under the white light, they appeared in a big hall. The hall around them was very strange. They looked at each other and saw a trace of fear in each other's eyes. After all, the hall was too strange and gave people a very uncomfortable feeling. Longao, this hall is not simple. According to my guess, if there is no accident, the thing we are looking for is in this hall. Longao nodded. Of course, he knew what Madman Yi was looking for. In fact, not only Madman Yi, but also Longao had guessed that the peak martial arts inheritance they were looking for, Tian Chen's inheritance, was in this hall. His intuition told him that the so-called Heart of Stars was here. In order to obtain Tian Chen's inheritance, they must first find the Heart of Stars. Madman Yi probably didn't know about this. Longao didn't tell Madman Yi the truth. In this situation, if they wanted to obtain the peak martial arts inheritance, they would have to rely on their own abilities. If he told Madman Yi, wouldn't he be looking for trouble? Moreover, Madman Yi had already subdued the heaven-devouring python. Even if he didn't obtain the peak martial arts inheritance, Yi Mo believed that with his current strength, as long as he didn't encounter a Nirvana realm martial artist who was at the unity of heaven and man realm, he could do whatever he wanted in the external sea. Yes, Madman Yi, you and I won't fight each other in the star purgatory. If you want to obtain the peak martial arts inheritance, you will have to rely on your own abilities. Alright, I hope you and I are both alive. You are my friend. Friend. Hearing Madman Yi's words, Longao was a little surprised. Even if they weren't enemies, they definitely weren't friends. However, Longao didn't have the slightest doubt. Madman Yi was a straightforward and upright person. They didn't continue to dwell on this issue. Neither of them continued to talk. They just stared at the surroundings of the hall. Although they had become friends, both of them wanted to obtain the peak martial arts inheritance. Again, there was only one way to obtain the peak martial arts inheritance, and that was to rely on their own abilities. There are 2 entrances. Longao, you and I will each choose one. Let's see if your luck is better or mine is better. No problem. Longao felt helpless in his heart. Because he possessed martial arts, the probability of finding the Heart of Stars was very high. As for Madman Yi, he didn't even know about the Heart of Stars. How could he obtain the peak martial arts inheritance? What a joke. Chapter 1549. Lunatic Yi chose the left entrance. On the other hand, Longao chose the right entrance. Just as Lunatic Yi was about to step into the entrance, Longao suddenly said, "Brother Yi, wait a moment." "Brother Long, what's the matter?" The way they addressed each other was different. This also meant that the 2 of them had changed from enemies to friends. "Brother Yi, if you want to obtain the inheritance of the pinnacle of martial Dao, you must first find the Heart of Stars. Otherwise, even if you can find the inheritance of the pinnacle of martial Dao, you won't be able to obtain it." What is the Heart of Stars? Without the slightest doubt, Lunatic Yi knew Longao's character very well. It was precisely because of this that Lunatic Yi was very surprised. "Brother Yi, I have a martial technique here. Only by relying on this martial technique can we find the Heart of Stars. This way, we can obtain the inheritance of the pinnacle of martial Dao. If people don't offend me, I won't offend them. If people offend me, I will pay them back double. On the contrary, if people respect me, I will respect them tenfold." Since Longao already treated Lunatic Yi as a friend, he didn't have the slightest intention of hiding his strength. Everyone relied on their own abilities. The most important thing for friends was fairness. Longao didn't want to take advantage of him. After receiving the martial technique, Lunatic Yi looked deeply at Longao. He didn't say anything and only nodded his head. He turned and left, instantly disappearing at the entrance. Not taking this matter to heart, Longao also turned and disappeared at the entrance. The entrance was a deep corridor. Even with Longao's speed, he still took a few minutes to walk to the end of the corridor. At the end, there was a side hall. It was very desolate, like a barren land. When Longao stepped into the side hall, a desolate aura rushed towards him. A cold shiver ran down his spine. The desolate aura was like a sharp sword, piercing his body and causing him to feel a faint pain. Heart of Stars. Looking at the heart crystal placed in the middle of the side hall, Longao already knew without guessing that the heart crystal in front of him was the Heart of Stars that he was looking for. Without any hesitation, Longao immediately circulated his martial skill and easily arrived before the Heart of Stars. He reached out and grabbed the heart crystal tightly in his hand. Longao was very clear that if he had not obtained the ancient seal text and obtained the so-called martial technique, it would have been impossible for him to come into contact with the heart crystal. Now that he had successfully obtained the Heart of Stars, his chances of obtaining the inheritance of the pinnacle of martial arts were as high as 99%. In other words, there was a 100% chance that he would obtain the martial arts peak inheritance. And the result? As Longao held the heart crystal in his hand, the surrounding desolate aura suddenly started to swirl rapidly. It was only for a moment. The desolate aura that was spinning more and more intensely enveloped Longao. Startled, Longao had no idea what was going on because the surrounding desolate aura was crazily corroding his body, even his soul. Longao, I like your physical body very much. As long as you hand over the 9 netherworld tiger, I can promise you that your soul can enter the cycle of reincarnation. You can be reborn in at most 1,000 years and return to your peak. What do you think? At this moment, Tian Chen's figure suddenly appeared in the side hall. Seeing this, Longao already knew what was going on. Tian Chen wanted to use his body and Long Ming to be reborn. *T, the inheritance of the pinnacle of martial arts. Everything was fake. Tian Chen, even if you self-destruct, I will not fulfill your wish. You want to be reborn? Dream on. Just the taboo energy of a starry sky expert was not something that he could contend against. Longao could clearly sense that the desolate aura that was corroding his body was the taboo energy of a starry sky expert. Unable to communicate with Long Fu and Xiling, it would be difficult for him to break the taboo energy with his own strength. Ha ha ha, Longao, even if you don't want to, do you think you can make the decision? Tian Chen stretched out his hand and pointed gently. The desolate aura around Longao spun faster and faster. However, it was obvious that Tian Chen did not want to make a move immediately. He just imprisoned Longao and did not attack. Longao, if I did not sense the existence of the mutated 9 netherworld tiger, you would be my best choice. I would also keep my promise and choose you to inherit my inheritance. Before Longao could speak, Tian Chen continued, but now, I have changed my mind. With the help of you and the 9 netherworld tiger, I don't need to look for an heir. I can be reborn. Ha ha ha, ha ha ha. Longao's face darkened. He did not expect Tian Chen to go back on his words. This situation was very unfavorable for him. Tian Chen did not need to continue looking for an heir. There was no doubt that besides him, even Madman Yi at the other entrance would not be able to escape death. What should he do? In his mind, he quickly thought of all kinds of ways to get out of here. Longao, are you not willing to accept this? Do you want to leave? As long as you agree, your spiritual soul can enter the reincarnation path and be reborn. Otherwise, when I destroy your spiritual soul, you won't even have the chance to enter the reincarnation path. Tian Chen, why don't you try? Longao sneered in his heart. It was almost certain that Tian Chen did not have full confidence that he could successfully suppress him. Once he had the chance to self-destruct, Tian Chen would not even have the chance to do so. Would Tian Chen agree? There was no doubt about it. The more Longao acted like this, the more gloomy Tian Chen's face became. Suddenly, Tian Chen laughed coldly. His laughter was filled with all kinds of eeriness and strangeness. The desolate forbidden force suppressed Longao and began to erode Longao's spiritual soul. If it was not for the 9 netherworld tiger, the forbidden force released by Tian Chen would be enough to kill Longao instantly. Tian Chen knew this, and so did Longao. Longao, I'll help you with all my strength. With the help of the reincarnation sword, you can attack with all your strength. Remember, seize the opportunity and leave immediately. Don't stay for even a moment. Otherwise, you won't have a second chance. At this critical moment, the mysterious young man's voice suddenly sounded in Longao's mind. He was delighted. Although he did not know what level the mysterious young man's strength had reached, Longao was very sure that the mysterious young man must be an expert of the starry sky, and his strength was not lower than the heaven Dao. Tian Chen in front of him could not be a level 8 starry sky cultivator. However, even so, Longao still could not believe it. Even if the reincarnation sword was powerful and had the help of the mysterious young man, it was easier said than done to escape with one attack. However, things had already come to this point. Even if he did not believe it, he could only try. Otherwise, he would really die. Imprisoned by the forbidden force, he could not move at all. Chapter 1550. Still want to resist? His face was full of contempt. As a powerhouse at the peak of the martial Dao, although he was only a grade 1 starry sky cultivator, it was enough to look down on the world. Not to mention a puny god emperor, Even if a Nirvana rebirth cultivator was here, he would not put them in his eyes. The gap between the starry sky realm and the Nirvana realm was too big, like one was the sky and the other was the earth. The two could not be compared. Imprisoned by the taboo power, Longao could not even move. Even if he wanted to use the Samsara sword, he was powerless. But at this time, the taboo power that imprisoned him suddenly disappeared. "Huh!" he exclaimed in surprise. Tian Chen did not seem to think that Longao could remove his taboo power. Was the other party a starry sky cultivator? Impossible, absolutely impossible. Because of this, Tian Chen really could not figure out how Longao did it. Before Tian Chen could react, the taboo power had just disappeared. Longao clenched the Samsara sword with both hands, roared and directly slashed at Tian Chen. The black sword light was like a shocking thunder, fiercely cutting through the space. Grade 2 taboo power. Tian Chen roared in horror. He never thought that Longao could release a Grade 2 taboo power. Not daring to hesitate, Tian Chen immediately disappeared. However, in the next second, a miserable cry rang out. Because the black sword light was too fast, even Tian Chen couldn't dodge it. Grade 2 taboo power? Could it be a Grade 2 starry sky cultivator? Longao knew very well that the mysterious youth who helped him was definitely not a mere Grade 2 starry sky cultivator. It seemed that the mysterious youth's strength was very strong, 100 times stronger than he thought. Starry sky cultivators were divided into 9 levels. In order of strength, they were Grade 1 starry sky cultivator, Grade 2 starry sky cultivator, Grade 3 starry sky cultivator, Grade 4 starry sky cultivator, Grade 5 starry sky cultivator, Grade 6 starry sky cultivator, Grade 7 starry sky cultivator, Grade 8 starry sky cultivator, and Grade 9 starry sky cultivator. Correspondingly, taboo energy was also divided into 9 levels. The taboo might was ranked from lowest to highest as Level 1 taboo power, Level 2 taboo power, Level 3 taboo power, Level 4 taboo power, Level 5 taboo power, Level 6 taboo power, Level 7 taboo power, Level 8 taboo power, and Level 9 taboo power. Level 2 taboo power, corresponding to a Level 2 starry sky cultivator. For a genius to not even be able to contend against a Level 2 taboo power, Tian Chen's strength was clear as day. Grade 2 starry sky cultivator. Longao had almost affirmed that Tian Chen was the so-called Grade 2 starry sky cultivator. Even so, Tian Chen was not a super existence that he could contend with. Just now, the mysterious young man had said that he only had one chance. If he didn't take this chance to leave, once Tian Chen found out, he would be in big trouble. No matter what, the mysterious young man would only help him once. After injuring Tian Chen, Longao did not linger. He immediately left the side chamber. Until now, Longao finally breathed a sigh of relief. If not for the mysterious young man's help, this time, he would have definitely died. If it were an ordinary person, after injuring Tian Chen with great difficulty, they would definitely leave the palace and the island first. Only Longao. Longao did not leave the palace. As soon as he left the right side chamber, he immediately rushed towards the left side chamber. His speed was as fast as lightning. If it were an enemy, Longao would definitely not help. If it were a friend, even if it was at the risk of his life, Longao would not hesitate to help. This was Longao's principle, and no matter what, it would not change. Longao had full confidence in his heart. The person that Tian Chen wanted to deal with was him, not Madman Yi. In other words, Madman Yi would be fine for the time being. Sure enough, as soon as Longao stepped into the side chamber, he saw Madman Yi looking for the Heart of Stars. Madman Yi was not attacked at all. He breathed a sigh of relief. Madman Yi was still fine. Brother Long, why are you here? He was a little surprised. However, Madman Yi had already guessed that there were only 2 possibilities for Longao to suddenly appear here. The first possibility was that Longao did not obtain the Heart of Stars at all, let alone the so-called peak martial arts inheritance. The second possibility was that Longao had already found the Heart of Stars. This time, he only came to tell him not to continue wasting his time. No matter which possibility it was, Madman Yi would not have any anger because he had already sincerely regarded Longao as a friend. Brother Yi, the matter is a little urgent. Quickly follow me. I will tell you as we walk. Okay. Seeing Longao's impatient expression, Lunatic Yi was also alarmed in his heart, not knowing what in the world had happened. However, Madman Yi chose to believe Longao. With his understanding of Longao, unless something big happened, Longao would not be like this. The more Longao acted like this, the more curious Madman Yi was. What exactly happened? Along the way, Longao recounted everything that had happened previously in full detail. After hearing this, Madman Yi sighed endlessly. He had never imagined that the master of the Purgatory of Stars, Tian Chen, had not fallen and was still here. Under such circumstances, it seemed that their chances of obtaining the inheritance at the peak of the martial way were almost zero. Not only that. Not only would they not be able to obtain the peak martial arts inheritance, but they would also not be able to leave here alive. After all, Tian Chen did not want this matter to spread out. The best way was to eliminate the root of the problem. The two passed through a long corridor and arrived at the main hall. They found that the stone door had disappeared. Tian Chen was injured, but Longao was not sure how serious his injury was. If it was only a minor injury, then wouldn't he be dead for sure? Brother Long, what should we do now? Madman Yi was also very scared. Tian Chen's strength was there for all to see. He was an expert at the peak of martial arts. Not to mention him, even if his father and the first elder were here, they would not dare to casually provoke Tian Chen. A peak martial artist was the strongest expert on the martial heaven continent. Other than the heavenly Daos and the god diviner, no one was a match for Tian Chen. He was no match for him, and Longao was no match for him. To tell you the truth, I just used some kind of energy to heavily injure Tian Chen. If nothing unexpected happens, Tian Chen should be recovering right now. So we should be safe for now. However, I don't know how long it will take for him to recover. With only a spirit and no physical body, it would not be easy for Tian Chen to recover from his injuries. You seriously injured Tian Chen? Hearing Longao's words, Madman Yi fiercely swallowed a mouthful of saliva, his face filled with disbelief. Chapter 1551. Madman Yi found it hard to believe. Tian Chen was an expert at the pinnacle of martial arts. Longao was only at the Emperor God realm. If Tian Chen had injured Longao, it might be reasonable. But if it was the other way around, it seemed a little strange. Madman Yi did not have the slightest doubt and chose to believe it. But if this matter was spread out, no one would choose to believe it. Brother Yi, since you and I are looking for an exit, I will tell you a secret. Brother Long, please tell me. I'm all ears. Madman Yi was looking forward to hearing the secret Longao was talking about. What kind of secret was it? Madman Yi originally wanted to ask how Longao had injured an expert at the pinnacle of martial arts, but when the words were on the tip of his tongue, he swallowed them back. As a friend, Madman Yi knew what to ask and what not to ask. Longao obviously did not want to tell him, so why should he ask more? Brother Yi, as everyone knows, above the Nirvana realm is the expert at the pinnacle of martial arts. He nodded. Madman Yi became more and more curious, because what Longao said was known to everyone in the world. It was not a secret. Madman Yi did not believe that the secret Longao said was the so-called thing. In fact, no one, including your father, knows that the so-called pinnacle of martial arts is the so-called Starry Sky realm. It was the first time he had heard of it, and also the first time he had heard of it. Madman Yi was very direct. That was, what Longao was talking about now was something he had never heard of or come into contact with before. Brother Long, what is the Starry Sky realm? The Starry Sky realm is the so-called pinnacle of martial arts. The two talked while looking for an exit, because no one knew when Tian Chen's injury would recover. The longer they delayed, the more danger they would be in. It was a race against time. Experts at the pinnacle of martial arts are also called Starry Sky cultivators, and the Starry Sky realm is divided into 9 levels. In the Purgatory of Stars where we are, Master Tian Chen is a first-level Starry Sky cultivator. He looked shocked. Madman Yi seemed to be unable to digest it, but no matter who heard it for the first time, they would have such an expression. If it wasn't Longao who said it himself, would Madman Yi believe it if someone else said it? Brother Long, do you know what realm the heavenly Tao is? What realm is the divine mathematician at? An even vaster world, vast and boundless. As Longao said, Madman Yi realized that he was actually very insignificant. According to my guess, the heavenly Tao should be a grade 8 starry sky cultivator. As for the divine mathematician, I believe you have already guessed it. If nothing unexpected happens, the divine mathematician's strength should be above the heavenly Tao. He should be a peak existence, the so-called grade 9 starry sky cultivator. Although he had already guessed it, Madman Yi still couldn't help but be shocked. It seemed that the God Diviner and the heavenly Taos were still at the peak of the martial heaven continent. Grade 1 starry sky cultivator, grade 8 starry sky cultivator, or even grade 9 starry sky cultivator. Although the two of them did not know the realm of a starry sky cultivator, they could still imagine how big the gap between the two was. In front of the Tao of heaven and Master God Diviner, Tian Chen was like an ant. Brother Long, I would like to ask about your background. Since things had already reached this point, Madman Yi had already guessed that the origin of the youth beside him was definitely not simple. Longao smiled and did not hide anything. He roughly told him what had happened to him in the martial heaven continent. As for Long Fu, Xiling, Bai Ling, and the mysterious youth, he did not mention a single word. Even so, after hearing this, Madman Yi's heart couldn't help but tremble. He had provoked 3 superpowers at the same time, and had counterattacked time and time again. Even being able to survive until now was a miracle in itself. Especially when he heard about the battle in the sword sect, Madman Yi was even more surprised. The divine mathematician had personally come to the sword sect and favored Longao, setting a 1-year agreement. Brother Long, your experience is truly legendary. To tell you the truth, I admire you very much. He smiled. Brother Yi, let alone you, even I admire myself very much. At this time, Longao suddenly stopped looking for an exit and sat down. He sat on the ground. I never thought that I would incur enmity with anyone. In truth, my wish is very simple. I want to pursue the peak of the martial path and live happily with my family and loved ones. However, the world is unpredictable. The world is unpredictable. What a good the world is unpredictable. Madman Yi also sighed and sighed endlessly. People in the Jianghu have no choice. Hearing this, Longao nodded in agreement. He repeated, people in the Jianghu have no choice. Brother Yi, your cultivation base has already broken through to the Nirvana realm. With your talent, if nothing unexpected happens, you will definitely be able to reach the Nirvana realm in the future. Now, I will tell you another secret. Another secret. Madman Yi seemed to be a bit afraid of hearing such a secret, but he was also a bit excited and expectant. It was very contradictory, because each of Longao's secrets was heaven-shaking and earth-shattering. If one's heart was weak, they would probably jump out. Brother Long, please tell me. Everyone knows that if you want to continue to improve after breaking through to the Nirvana realm and reach the peak of the martial path, which is the so-called starry sky realm, there is only one way, and that is to devour the power of origin and seek a breakthrough. Exactly. This was the rule of the Nirvana realm to break through to the peak of the martial path. No one could change it. Indeed. In this case, as long as a Nirvana realm martial artist can devour the power of origin, if nothing unexpected happens, almost all of them can reach the peak of the martial path. However, once the cultivation base breaks through to the starry sky realm, it is as difficult as ascending to the sky to improve again. If your talent and opportunity are not good enough, it is impossible to improve again in this lifetime. Yi Qingyu was shocked. Madman Yi was not a fool. Of course, he could understand the meaning of Longao's words. Was there something fishy about it? Nodding, Longao continued, Brother Yi, if you want to go further on the martial path in the future, don't devour the power of origin. Even if the power of origin is in front of you, don't do it. Why is that? Madman Yi was a little anxious, because this matter was related to whether he could break through to the peak of the martial path in the future, and everything after the breakthrough. If you can reproduce the power of origin on your own, then once your cultivation base breaks through to the starry sky realm, it will have indescribable benefits for your future breakthroughs, although it is a little difficult to reproduce the power of origin. Longao did not tell Madman Yi the truth, because all the power of origin on the Tianwu continent was sealed by the heavenly Tao. It was almost impossible for a Nirvana realm martial artist to reproduce the power of origin that belonged to him. Only by relying on the power of origin could one reproduce the power of origin. P.S. Send the second chapter. Chapter 1552. Brother Long, forgive me for being blunt. Please speak. Madman Yi thought for a moment and said, in the past 10,000 years, I've never heard of anyone being able to reproduce source energy. Even the strongest person below the peak of the martial path, the thousand beast ancestor, couldn't do it. So Madman Yi had thought of it. Longao didn't intend to tell the truth. Since Madman Yi had already thought of this, there was no point in continuing to hide it. Brother Yi, do you know why no one has been able to reproduce their own source energy for so many years? It's related to the heavenly Tao. It seemed that Madman Yi already knew. Yes. In fact, it wasn't just Madman Yi. Many people knew about this matter clearly. It was just that no one dared to provoke the heavenly Tao due to its strength. According to the information I received, the Tianwu continent was filled with source energy back then. As long as one's cultivation could break through to the Nirvana realm, one would have two choices. One was to devour the source energy, and the other was to comprehend the source energy and reproduce their own source energy. It's all because the heavenly Tao sealed the source energy that no one could break through to the peak of the martial path. Longao seemed to already know and wasn't the slightest bit surprised. He was a little curious. Brother Long, if that's the case, without comprehending the source energy, how can we reproduce it? I also don't know, but I believe that we will eventually find a way. Would it really happen? Seeing that Longao was so optimistic, Madman Yi didn't say anything to disturb him. However, in Madman Yi's heart, there wasn't the slightest bit of excitement or anticipation. Because for more than 10,000 years, could he and Longao really do something that no one had been able to do? All right, let's hurry and find the exit. Otherwise, I'm afraid it'll be too late. Okay. Longao and Madman Yi once again began to search crazily. Because time was passing bit by bit, who knew when Tian Chen would recover? In the main hall, the desolate aura had already begun to slowly spread. Madman Yi might not know what the desolate aura meant, but how could Longao not know? Just now in the side hall, he was locked on by the desolate aura and was almost killed by Tian Chen. The desolate aura was the forbidden power. Longao was very wary. Brother Yi, be careful. This is the forbidden power of a starry sky powerhouse. Forbidden power? Hearing Longao's reminder, Lunatic Yi was shocked. Of course, he knew what the so-called taboo power meant. As an expert at the peak of martial arts, the taboo power was the most powerful force in the world. It was enough to destroy everything. Brother Long, what should we do now? Longao could even injure Tian Chen, let alone a taboo power. Madman Yi had overestimated Longao's strength and underestimated Tian Chen's strength. Shaking his head, Longao expressed his helplessness. The desolate aura spread very quickly. In the blink of an eye, it had already covered every corner of the hall. Without the arrival of Tian Chen, the aura of desolation was just an aura of desolation. It could not be transformed into the so-called forbidden power. Only then did the two of them heave a sigh of relief. The forbidden power could destroy the heavens and earth. Brother Yi, I'm still not sure how serious Tian Chen's injuries are, but based on the current situation, they shouldn't be light. Therefore, we have to find the exit as soon as possible. Otherwise, once Tian Chen recovers, it'll be hard to say what will happen to us. Longao was almost certain that the sword from before had dealt a huge amount of damage to Tian Chen. Otherwise, there was no way Tian Chen would not have appeared after such a long time. They had to buy time. Nodding his head, Lunatic Yi understood the severity of the situation. Without any hesitation, he began to search for the exit. Within the hall, the desolate aura was getting thicker and thicker. Cough cough, cough 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 cough. Longao and Lunatic Yi started coughing violently. It was as if the two of them were having a competition. One coughed, the other coughed. What a lively scene. What was going on? Both of them were surprised. Given their strength, there was no way they would start coughing for no reason. Could it be that Tian Chen had appeared? That didn't seem right. If Tian Chen had appeared, why would he be hiding in the dark? The heart of the stars. Suddenly, 3 words flashed across Longao's mind. It was the heart of the stars that he had obtained from the side hall. According to Tian Chen, as long as he could obtain the heart of Tian Chen, he would be able to obtain the inheritance of the pinnacle of martial arts. If that was the case, then whether or not the heart of Tian Chen was the key to leaving the hall, he would know after trying it out. Taking out the heart of the stars, Longao tried to channel his energy into it. However, nothing happened. Looking at this situation, Longao was dumbfounded. Could it be that the heart of the stars was not the key to opening the door of the hall? Longao did not choose to give up on the divine soul. Instead, he poured his divine soul into the heart of stars. Suddenly, the heart of stars radiated light in all directions, directly dispersing the desolate aura. Following that, it dominated the entire hall. Brother Long, is this the so-called heart of the stars? Of course, Lunatic Yi knew about the item in Longao's hands. However, it was no longer important. Since Tian Chen wanted to be reborn, how could he let them obtain the inheritance? In other words, whether they obtained the heart of the stars or not, the result would be the same. Nodding his head, Longao said, "Follow me closely." As expected, following the appearance of the heart of the stars, a spatial gate suddenly appeared in the hall. The two of them looked at each other and saw a trace of surprise in each other's eyes. The two of them did not speak, nor did they stop. They both took a step forward and directly entered the spatial gate, disappearing without a trace. In front of the heart devil Steely, realizing that the two of them had successfully left the hall, the two of them were pleasantly surprised. However, their expressions immediately turned solemn. Although they had successfully left the hall, this was still the astral purgatory, Tian Chen's territory. As long as they didn't leave, they wouldn't be safe. They had to leave the astral purgatory as soon as possible. Easier said than done. Let's go. Whether it was Lunatic Yi or Longao, the two of them did not dare to have the slightest hesitation. They shot forward as fast as they could. However, at this moment, the two of them abruptly stopped because in front of them was the territory of the blood-red praying mantis. And behind the territory of the blood-red praying mantis was the territory of the blood-red spider. Whether it was the blood-red spider or the blood-red praying mantis, they were both abnormally terrifying. Wanting to force their way through was not an easy task. Brother Yi, help me with all your strength. No problem. Up until now, Lunatic Yi still couldn't figure out what kind of martial skill Longao had used to force his way through. If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, he wouldn't have believed it even if he was beaten to death. It was simply unimaginable and unbelievable. P.S. I went out to do something. I'll be back in the afternoon to continue updating. This is the 3rd chapter. Chapter 1553. If it was just Longao alone, even if he used the 5 elements heaven swallowing technique, he wouldn't be able to force his way through. However, the situation this time was completely different from the previous time. Brother Long, what's going on? He was a little surprised. He was also a little helpless. Longao was very clear that with his 5 elements heaven swallowing technique and Lunatic Yi's help, it should be easy to smoothly break through. But the result? My technique has lost its effect. Lunatic Yi was shocked to hear this. The two of them didn't dare to take a step forward because there were blood spiders and blood mantises in front of them. Once they were trapped, the consequences would be unimaginable. What should they do? The two of them looked at each other. For a moment, no one had a better idea. Danger was imminent. The two of them were very clear that once Tian Chen recovered from his injuries, they wouldn't be able to leave this place alive, let alone leave this place. It was a race against time. Brother Long, I have an idea. What is it? Longao was very curious. He didn't know what Tian Chen would do to leave this place at this moment. Heaven-swallowing python. With just 4 simple words, Longao already knew what Lunatic Yi's idea was. No matter what, the heaven-swallowing python was still a nirvana divine beast. It might really be able to bring them out of this place. Lunatic Yi didn't hesitate at all. At the same time, the heaven-swallowing python's huge body also left. The two of them looked dignified and quickly followed the heaven-swallowing python. The heaven-swallowing python led the way. Even so, the two of them didn't relax at all. Because the two of them still weren't sure if the heaven-swallowing python could resist the siege of the blood spiders and blood mantises. In any case, there were too many blood spiders and blood mantises. As the saying goes, 2 fists can't fight against 4 hands. The heaven-swallowing python's terrifying aura swept through the army. It had the aura of one man holding back 10,000 men. However, in just a few minutes, countless blood mantises drowned the heaven-swallowing python. Looking at the disappearance of the heaven-swallowing python, both Longao and Lunatic Yi were a little dumbfounded. They didn't know what was going on. Not daring to be careless, the two of them quickly retreated. Fortunately, the two of them were very fast. Otherwise, they would be drowned by the army of blood mantises. Brother Long, even the heaven-swallowing python can't leave this place. He nodded. How could Long Long not know what Lunatic Yi's meaning? Longao did not expect that even with the strength of the sky-devouring python, it could not break through the army of blood-red praying mantises. In just an instant, it was submerged by the army of blood-red praying mantises. Would be if he didn't see it with his own eyes. It Lunatic Yi's to heaven way to leave this place. Lunatic heaven swallowing tea. This was because the countless blood-red spiders in front of them had suddenly stopped moving. The aura of the Nirvana divine beast. As soon as Longao finished his words, the ground suddenly began to tremble. In the next moment, 2 enormous divine beasts appeared. The enormous blood spider and the enormous blood mantis, the 2 divine beasts, were genuine Nirvana realm divine beasts and had reached the oneness of heaven and man. Oneness of heaven and man had the domain of heaven and earth. Things had already reached this point. If Longao still could not guess, then he would really be a fool. Brother Yi, it seems that the heaven-swallowing python was drowned by the 2 divine beasts. It should be. The 2 Nirvana mythical beasts that had achieved unity of heaven and man could easily destroy the sky-devouring python in a 1-on-1 battle, let alone a 2-on-1 battle. No matter what level the divine beasts of Nirvana realm were, they were just pets in Tian Chen's eyes. They kept retreating. The two of them looked more and more dignified. Because of the 2 divine beasts of Nirvana realm, they couldn't even survive, let alone break through. All of a sudden, 2 terrifying realms of heaven and earth erupted from the 2 divine beasts of Nirvana realm and shrouded them. Under the realms of heaven and earth, everything was like an ant. The two of them were locked by the realms of heaven and earth and couldn't move at all. Seeing the 2 divine beasts of Nirvana realm slowly approaching them, they would be lying if they said they weren't afraid. Brother Long, what should we do now? Madman Yi didn't know why, but he trusted Longao very much at this moment. It was as if he was sure that Longao could get rid of the realms of heaven and earth and leave this place. Long Fu, help me. Although he was unable to communicate with Long Fu and Purple Spirit, under such circumstances, Longao was still very clear that only Long Fu and Purple Spirit could help him. After all, with the strength of the realm of heaven and earth, with his strength, there was no way he could break the lock. However, Long Fu still didn't answer or make a move. This could only mean one thing. Until now, Longao still couldn't communicate with Long Fu. In a hurry, Longao could only take out the Samsara sword and slashed backward. Longao was just trying. He didn't expect that he could break the realms of heaven and earth with the help of the Samsara sword. After all, the realms of heaven and men were unique to the oneness of heaven and men. Not to mention himself, Even a Nirvana realm warrior who had comprehended heaven and earth couldn't break the realms of heaven and earth. However, a shocking scene appeared. The Samsara sword burst out with the Samsara sword and instantly broke the realms of heaven and earth released by the two divine beasts. Not to mention Longao, even Madman Yi was a little dumbfounded. Let's go. The two of them didn't continue to think about this problem because the two divine beasts of Nirvana realm had already taken action. If they were caught by the two divine beasts of Nirvana realm, the result would be obvious. In a few seconds, the two of them returned to the front of the Heart Devil Steely. Brother Long, if we continue to move forward, we will have to return to the main hall. Once Tian Chen recovers, we won't be able to advance or retreat. At that time, we will be in a dilemma and it will be really difficult to leave here. Longao was certainly clear about this problem. Enter the main hall? Or fight the two divine beasts of Nirvana realm? After thinking about it, Longao realized that no matter if they entered the main hall or fought the two divine beasts of Nirvana realm, only death would await them. Longao certainly didn't want such a result. How should he choose? There was a tiger in front and a wolf behind. They couldn't advance or retreat. Sensing that the two divine beasts of Nirvana realm were getting closer and closer to them, they became more and more worried. If they couldn't make a choice, they could only fight the two divine beasts of Nirvana realm. At that time, they would still die. Chapter 1554. He was in a dilemma. Gritting his teeth, Longao said, "Let's enter the main hall." Since things had come to this point, Longao finally chose to enter the main hall instead of fighting with the two Nirvana divine beasts. Longao's meaning was very simple. If they chose to enter the main hall, Tian Chen's injuries would not recover in a short time. They still had a chance. Once they chose to fight with the two Nirvana divine beasts, they would only die. After thinking about it, in the end, Longao made this choice. As for Lunatic Yi, he did not doubt Longao's decision at all. When the two Nirvana divine beasts were only 3 meters away, they had already stepped into the stone door and disappeared without a trace. In the main hall, a desolate aura filled the entire main hall. It was very helpless. Lunatic Yi sighed and said, "Brother Long, I really didn't expect that you and I would come back after we finally left this damn place." He also shrugged helplessly. "I don't know when Tian Chen's injuries will recover. The only thing we need to do now is to find a way out of here." There was no chance to get the inheritance of the peak of martial arts. There was nothing else to do except leave. The matter was very serious because neither of them knew when Tian Chen's injuries would recover. For a moment, neither of them continued to speak. The main hall fell into silence. Looking at the Samsara sword in front of him, Longao was very shocked. Until now, he had not reacted because he had never expected that the Samsara sword could break the lock of the domain of heaven and earth. If he had not seen it with his own eyes and experienced it personally, he would have found it hard to believe. It seemed that the Samsara sword transformed from the Samsara disc was very powerful. In this case, could the Samsara sword restore the spatial fluctuations? Since entering here, Longao had not only been unable to teleport, but also could not enter the Dragon Seal space. The reason was very simple. It was because the spatial fluctuations here were disturbed. Because of this, Longao thought that if he could use the power of the Samsara sword to restore the spatial fluctuations, wouldn't he be able to communicate with Long Fu and Xiling? "Brother Yi, help me keep an eye here." "All right." Without any hesitation, Longao immediately brandished the Samsara sword. In the blink of an eye, the surroundings were filled with Samsara sword light, forming a Samsara sword light chi cover. As expected, Longao's guess was correct. "Xiling, Long Fu, I'm trapped in the main hall. Is there any way for me to leave?" Of course, Xiling and Long Fu knew what had happened. Xiling thought for a while and said, "Tian Chen is a grade 1 starry sky cultivator. It would be difficult for the two of you to fight against him. With the strength of a starry sky powerhouse, how could Longao not know the gap between himself and Tian Chen?" "Longao, with me and Long Fu's help, You can leave the purgatory of stars in a matter of minutes. Hearing this, Longao's face lit up. It seemed that his guess was correct. Before Longao had time to speak, Xiling continued, Longao, I believe you won't be willing to leave like this. He felt helpless. What could he do even if he was unwilling? After all, Tian Chen's strength was obvious. It was almost impossible for him to get the inheritance of the peak of martial arts. Did Xiling have a way? Longao was not a fool. Xiling would not say this casually. It seemed that there was something fishy about it. Xiling, do you have a way for me to get the inheritance of the peak of martial arts? Seeing Xiling nod, Longao was not as surprised as he had imagined, because Xiling had not fully recovered from his injuries. It was impossible for him to fight against Tian Chen. Longao, Long Fu, and I will do our best to set up a trap for Tian Chen. The success rate is about 50%. Only 50%. He was very serious and worried. Longao was afraid that something would happen to Xiling and Long Fu. He would never agree to put Xiling and Long Fu in danger for Tian Chen's inheritance of the peak of martial arts. Xiling seemed to be able to guess Longao's thoughts. He smiled and said, Longao, if you didn't hurt Tian Chen, we would only have a 50% chance. But now, we have a 100% chance of success. So that was it. Longao was really shocked. Longao, I really want to ask, what's going on with your sword? Although he could not communicate with Xiling and Long Fu, Longao was sure that Xiling and Long Fu must know that he used the Samsara sword to hurt Tian Chen. In that case, there was no need for him to hide it. To tell the truth. Xiling, to tell you the truth, the Samsara sword in my hand was transformed from the Samsara disc. As for the great power of the Samsara sword, I was a little shocked that it could hurt Tian Chen. Longao did not hide anything about the Samsara disc and the Samsara sword. As for the mysterious young man in the wordless heaven book, Longao did not reveal anything. Whether it was Long Fu or Xiling, Longao did not mention a word about it. No wonder, Longao, I believe you already know that the Samsara disc is the most precious treasure of the Samsara clan. The Samsara sword transformed from the Samsara disc is indeed very powerful. It is not a big deal to hurt Tian Chen. After all, Tian Chen is only a spirit, not a true body. Longao was also aware of this point. However, your Samsara sword was able to break through the suppression of the forbidden power and even the domain of heaven and earth. I am very surprised by this. Longao, remember this. The Samsara sword is different from other treasures. I have a feeling that your Samsara sword has not even displayed 1,000th of its power. Ah! Hearing this, Longao was shocked. The current power of the Samsara sword was enough to shock him. If the Samsara sword's full power was displayed, it was hard to imagine how powerful it would be. Unbelievable, unbelievable. Xiling, what should we do now? Longao did not continue to dwell on the Samsara sword, because he was very clear about one thing. If he wanted to continuously increase the power of the Samsara sword, the first condition was to continuously increase his own strength. However, increasing strength was not something that could be done overnight. After thinking for a while, Xiling said, Longao, Long Fu, and I will set up an air shield in the hall later. Remember, you only need to lure Tian Chen into the air shield. Leave the rest to us. Xiling, Tian Chen is still a starry sky cultivator. You and Long Fu have not recovered to the peak of your strength. If you are not careful, at this point, Longao did not continue. Longao did not finish his words, but the meaning of his words was very clear. Xiling smiled and said, if it were other starry sky cultivators, we would not have full confidence. But now, Tian Chen is not a threat. Longao, I want to ask you, what are you going to do with Tian Chen's inheritance after you get it? Chapter 1555. The Martial Dao Peak Inheritance. From the beginning to the end, Longao had never thought that he would inherit the so-called martial arts peak inheritance. Xiling, don't worry. I won't accept the inheritance. I will reproduce the power of origin on my own. I understand. He thought about it. Longao said with a smile, if I can get the martial Dao peak inheritance, I will take it back to my family and choose someone to inherit it. If that's the case, no problem. But Longao, you have to remember that the Starry Sky inheritance can only last for a month at most. Once the time is up, the inheritance will automatically disappear. Longao returned to the main hall. Brother Yi, I will deal with Tian Chen later. Remember, no matter what happens, don't interfere. Just stand aside and watch. He was a little shocked. Longao was going to deal with Tian Chen. Was this true? He sighed. As he spent more time with Longao, Madman Yi found that he knew less and less about Longao. If someone else said this, Madman Yi would definitely scoff and not take it to heart. Except for Longao. Madman Yi knew very well that since Longao dared to say this, he would definitely be able to do it. However, he didn't know what method Longao would use to deal with Tian Chen. Brother Long, be careful. Okay. In the following time, Longao and Madman Yi began to cultivate quietly. After seeing the power of the Samsara sword with his own eyes, Longao was looking forward to the power of the Samsara sword. In addition to the Samsara sword, there was also the 9-cycle reincarnation technique. Unknowingly, he had already cultivated to the 4th cycle of the 9-cycle reincarnation technique and was working hard to break through to the 5th cycle. The 9-cycle reincarnation technique, 9-cycle reincarnation, crazy battle the world. 1st cycle reincarnation, not entering the underworld. 2nd cycle reincarnation, space teleportation. 3rd cycle reincarnation, reincarnation doppelganger. 4th cycle reincarnation, reincarnation heavenly eye. Longao was looking forward to what kind of supernatural power would be produced after breaking through to the 5th cycle of the 9-cycle reincarnation technique. He focused on cultivating the 9-cycle reincarnation technique. Following each breakthrough of the 9 revolutions samsara technique, Longao discovered one thing very gloomily. Only after experiencing life and death could he break through the 9-cycle reincarnation technique. If that was the case, what if he died? Time trickled by. 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. Longao, I have to admit that your courage is not bad. You actually dared to wait for death here. A cold, desolate aura suddenly descended, followed by a forbidden power, which was the unique power of a Starry Sky powerhouse. He was not surprised at all. Tian Chen, you're going back on your word. You're a Starry Sky powerhouse. Tian Chen seemed a little surprised when he heard Longao's words. You actually know about Starry Sky cultivators? Starry Sky cultivators were the biggest secret of the Sky Martial continent. Everyone, including Rebirth Realm martial artists, knew that above the Rebirth Realm was the so-called peak realm of the martial Dao. Only those who could break through the peak of martial arts could know about the Starry Sky cultivators. In that case, how did the other party know? Longao, what else do you know? I know a lot. What do you want to know? His face was cold, and the forbidden power on his body grew stronger and stronger, enveloping the two of them. If it was a normal moment, even if the divine soul existed, Tian Chen would still not put the two of them in his heart. Only now, after being injured by Longao once, his divine soul almost disappeared. It would be a lie to say that he was not afraid. Tian Chen, you're just a level 1 Starry Sky cultivator. You should know very well that any random Starry Sky cultivator can easily destroy you. Hearing this, Tian Chen's face became more and more gloomy. Because Longao was right. He was a level 1 Starry Sky cultivator. Among the 9 levels of the Starry Sky, he was at the bottom. All of a sudden, Tian Chen smiled gloomily and said contemptuously, you're right. I'm just a level 1 Starry Sky cultivator, but it's more than enough to deal with you. From the beginning to the end, Madman Yi did not speak and just stood quietly on the side. Experts at the peak of martial arts, the so-called Starry Sky cultivators, were too powerful in his eyes. The gap between them was like the gap between a baby and a big man. Madman Yi was very worried. Until now, he did not know how Longao would deal with Tian Chen. With the slightest carelessness, the two of them would be doomed eternally. If I told you that I also have a Starry Sky cultivator in my body, and that my strength is far above yours, Would you still say that? Bluffing. Longao was obviously bluffing. Xiling, Bai Ling, and Long Fu, although they were all starry sky cultivators, the three of them were seriously injured. Bai Ling was still in a coma, and Xiling and Long Fu had not recovered from the three realms of nirvana, let alone the starry sky cultivator realm. Because of this, whether it was Xiling or Long Fu, it was impossible for them to be Tian Chen's opponent. If it was before, Tian Chen would definitely not believe Longao's words. But now, especially after being injured by Longao 3 days ago, Tian Chen was very clear in his heart. If it wasn't for the help of the other party, with just the other party's strength, would he be able to injure him? Did Longao really have a starry sky cultivator in his body? Even if it was a divine soul, he could not deal with it. After all, in the starry sky level, the difference of one level was huge. If he was in his original body, he would not be afraid even if it was a level 2 starry sky cultivator's divine soul. He could even devour it to strengthen himself. Are you afraid? It would be strange if he said he was not afraid, but Tian Chen was more or less unwilling to believe it. If Longao really had a starry sky cultivator in his body, why would he be in such a sorry state? Taking a step back, if there was really a starry sky cultivator in Longao's body, wouldn't it mean that the starry sky divine soul was seriously injured and could only help Longao? If that was the case, once he devoured it. Thinking of this, Tian Chen's face suddenly lit up. Oh no! Madman Yi looked at Tian Chen's expression and seemed to have guessed something. Of course, Madman Yi did not believe Longao's words, because in his opinion, if Longao really had the help of a starry sky cultivator, he would not be in such a sorry state and almost killed by the three superforces. Until now, Madman Yi still did not know what Longao wanted to do. You want to devour the starry sky divine soul in my body. Since he was seen through, Tian Chen did not continue to hide it. He nodded with a smile and said, "You are right. With my strength, once I devour your starry sky divine soul, there is no doubt that not only can I be reborn, I can even continue to break through to the level 2 starry sky cultivator realm. Longao, I can give you a chance. As long as you hand over the so-called starry sky divine soul, not only will I not kill you, I will also let you go and even help you break through to the hierarch realm. How about it?" You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.